By the 13th century, Europe was a landscape of stone and shadow. Castles rose on nearly every horizon. England alone bristled with more than 1,000, while France could claim even more, over 1,200 strongholds by some counts, their towers and battlements stitched across valleys, rivers, and coasts. These were not quick monuments. A single fortress could take 30, 40, or even 50 years to build. Fathers who laid the foundations might never live to see the final battlements crown the hill. Each castle was a world unto itself. The keep, thick-walled and brooding, held chambers stacked one atop another, storerooms sunk into damp earth, guard-rooms filled with the clang of steel, the great hall echoing with feasts and judgments, narrow chapels humming with whispered prayers, kitchens smoked with constant fire, stables rang with stamping hooves, cellars held barrels of ale and salted meat. Around this core spread a village of labourers, smithies, laundresses, and grooms. A powerful lord might employ 50, even 100 servants, each one invisible in the chronicles but vital to survival. And yet, for all their might, castles were never comfortable. The walls sweated with damp, draught winds slipped through arrow slits, and the scent of smoke and mould lingered in every corridor. Fireplaces, even great ones, could never warm the vast stone rooms. Glass was rare, windows covered with oiled cloth or horn. At night, rats scuttled across the rushes strewn on the floors, feeding on scraps from banquets. In winter, noble and servant alike shivered, their breath rising in pale clouds even within the Lord's chamber. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from and what time is it there right now? Now settle deeper into your blankets. Let your breath slow, and together we'll slip into the journey. The bell strikes. In your world, alarms can be postponed. You tap a glowing screen, the digits yield, and another 5 minutes bloom like a gift. Here there is no snooze. The bell is iron, the night is cold, and when danger calls you wake because the stone itself seems to shake you awake. Your mattress is not a cloud of springs and foam, but a linen sack of straw that prickles your skin. Your blanket does not hug you back. It scratches, holds the smoke of yesterday, and smells faintly of tallow. The bell strikes again. Iron on iron. A deep, unyielding note that trembles in the stones and in your ribs. You jolt awake, wool scratching your neck, the straw mattress crunching as you turn. The chamber is not dark so much as dense, a blackness thick with damp air, cut only by a razor of moonlight seeping through a slit in the wall. You taste mould and smoke when you inhale, the cold so present it feels like a hand pressed to your chest. One long toll, then two short. Fire. You do not need a steward to tell you. The pattern has lived in your bones since childhood. Voices thud on the other side of the oak door, rushed whispers. A dropped pail, the skitter of a rat startled across the rushes. The smell reaches you next, pitch and singed fat, bitter in the throat. You gather the cloak from the chair. It's heavy, wool thick with last night's smoke. The clasps cold as wet nails. Bare feet meet the floor, stone that wakes you further with its bite. A taper sputters under your thumb, yellow light shaking on the walls as you cross to the door. You open it to the corridor but not to the night beyond. Not while the alarm still shudders through the walls. You wait, listening, letting others run. The sounds ebb. The bell wavers to silence. Somewhere, the steward's voice lowers from command to counting. The air in the passage settles, though it is furred with soot. Your own breath slows. A little. When morning finds you, it does not pour in bright and kind. It leaks, pale and cold, through the same narrow slit. You do not swipe brightness up. You cannot tell time by digits. You reckon dawn by the tone of the stones and the thinness of the light. Then the soft knock, 3 quick taps, respectful but certain. The hinges complain as the door opens. Servants slip inside on quiet feet, moving as water flows around a stone. One sets a brass candlestick to life. Flame licks shadows from the corners. Another brings the ewer and basin, steam coiling like a ghost in the chill. A third, older and careful, carries folded linen, wool, and the tunic embroidered with your house's device. Keys clink at her belt. The sound is as much a signature as any seal. They do not ask how you slept. The bell told everyone. They do not mention smoke. It is in all your hair. They begin the ritual because rituals are how households survive nights like this. The youngest draws the bed curtains back and shakes them once, briskly tossing straw dust into the air. He gathers your cloak, claps it outside the door to release soot, and returns with lowered eyes. The woman with the ewer pours. The water is warm enough to bloom across your hands and then disappear, beaten by the stone-cold air. A rough cloth wipes your face and neck again and again, until the bitter trace of smoke lifts from your skin. You plunge your fingers into a small ceramic cup of lamp-warmed oil, rosemary and something sharper, and smooth it across knuckles cracked by winter. Layers come next. Linen first, clean and cool, fastening under the arms with a practiced pull. Then wool hose, tugged snug and tied at the waist with cords. The doublet with its rows of laces and points. The tunic whose embroidery catches the candlelight in threads like frost. A belt slides through your fingers. The leather soft with tallow. Shoes wait by the bed, turned, warmed and rubbed with fat until they shine. When you sit, a bone comb whispers through your hair, patient, unhurried. The servant's breath is steady. Only the slightest tremor tells you she too woke to the bell. On a tray, a cup of small ale stands beside a wooden bowl of warm pottage, barley and onion, a whisper of sage. You sip. The ale is safer than water drawn fast from a troubled well. Everyone knows this, though few write it down. In some houses, letters hint. They sweeten morning wine with spices, clove, cinnamon, a luxury you sometimes hoard and sometimes pour, depending on whom you must impress that day. Beyond your chamber, you feel the castle waking rather than hear it. A muffled clatter from the buttery, a ladder's dull knock against a wall where a mason will check for cracks. The chapel's tiny bell rung wants to say the priest is awake and fitting his stole. Somewhere, a dog gives a single dissatisfied bark and is hushed. From the hall below, the scent of baking bread rises, yeasty, comforting, braided through with the lingering ghost of smoke. You pull that scent into your lungs and let it out slowly, hoping it takes the last of the night with it. There is work to do. The steward will come with his tablet and chalk, will list rafters to be inspected, rushes to be changed, a scullion to be scolded for leaving a spark where a spark should not be. He will speak briskly of costs and men and time. He may add, almost casually, that the glass in the oriel, if you can call that, milky pane glass is spider-cracked with heat and must be mended. He may remind you that some say proper glazed windows creep into a few rich halls farther south by late century, but here horn and cloth beg patience from the weather. You stand so they can fasten the last clasp at your shoulder. The fabric's weight settles like a promise of rank, of order, of the long day's business. You extend your hand for the signet ring. The metal kisses your skin, familiar, cool. The older servant watches your face, only long enough to be sure the set of your jaw means strength and not sorrow, then lowers her gaze again. They know the lines of your moods as well as they know the seams of your clothes. You breathe, slow and even. The bell is quiet now. The castle endures, scarred, yes, but standing, and its people move along the grooves of custom worn smooth by years. You think, for a moment, of the bed you do not have, the warmth you cannot summon with a switch, the snooze that never exists here. Then you let the thought go. The candle wavers. The comb's last stroke smooths your hair. The basin water cools to uselessness. A skin of chill forming on its surface. You flex your fingers inside your sleeves, feeling linen, then wool, then the outer cloth like layers of weather you can carry. Your breath leaves your body in a pale ribbon. You could almost tie to something and pull the room closer to you. Outside the door, The corridor waits, smelling of beeswax, old smoke, and damp stone. Inside, your servants step back, and in their quiet faces you see the truest architecture of the place. Hands, habits, and care. You nod. They withdraw like tide from a rock. You stand a heartbeat longer in the scene between night and day, listening to the hush of the castle's lungs. Then you take the first slow step into morning, cold, drafty, unglamorous, and entirely yours. A feast in your century is casual. A dinner out means menus printed in ink, candles placed for ambiance, courses arriving clean on white plates. If you dislike the flavour, you set it aside. If you fear the drink, you order another. In the Middle Ages, your meals mean more. Every banquet is a stage, every dish a proclamation, and every goblet a gamble. There is no refusing without consequence, no ordering without risk. Here, food is not simply nourishment. It is politics carved in roast venison, loyalty salted in fish, faith poured in wine. When a noble calls a feast, they do not merely intend to fill bellies, they mean to remind every guest of their power. The abundance on the table speaks louder than words, showing that your land can provide meat while peasants beyond the gate survive on bread crusts and cabbage stew. A feast is the theatre of privilege, and sometimes the stage of betrayal. The hall is alive before you step inside. The door creaks open and warmth pours out, heat from 100 candles, the roar of a fire big enough to roast an ox, voices tumbling over one another in laughter and argument. The rushes on the floor have been replaced this morning, sprinkled with herbs to sweeten the air, lavender meadow-sweet, a hint of mint crushed under boots. The scent mixes with roasting meat, and the sour tang of ale, thick enough to taste before your tongue even touches the cup. Above, banners hang, faded in some places, bright in others, embroidered with the crests of your line, lions rampant, crosses proud, chevrons sharp, tapestries line the walls, their threads showing hunts, battles, saints. To the villagers, they would seem miracles of colour. To you, they are the insulation against cold, the storytelling of power stitched in wool. The high table waits, placed on a dais so your body will be above all others. Position is not a detail, it is the point. Nobility is measured in inches of height, the angle of your chair against another's. Those seated farthest down the benches know their distance is a reminder. They are small in your shadow. You cross the threshold. Servants bow as you pass, moving aside with trays and pitchers. The scrape of benches rises as guests stand briefly, acknowledging your presence. The music falters, a harp string plucked, a drum hushed, before resuming louder, as if to celebrate. Your chair is carved oak, arms heavy with age. As you sit, attendants fuss over details. One straightens the cloth, another adjusts your goblet so the crest faces forward. A platter arrives almost at once, trenchers of bread, thick slices of stale loaves, used as plates to hold meats and stews. These will soak up juices, and by the meal's end be so sodden that they are tossed to dogs or beggars. The modern mind would see waste. The medieval mind sees hierarchy. You eat flesh, others eat what is left. The first course comes roasted fowl, not one bird but dozens. Swans, their feathers resewn to their skin for display, their beaks gilded in paint. Peacocks with tails spread wide as if they had not died at all. Geese stuffed with apples, chickens rubbed with saffron to make their flesh golden. Each dish is a statement, a message that your kitchen commands both nature and wealth. Imported spices, pepper, cinnamon, cloves, cling to the meat, rarities dearer than gold by the ounce, brought by merchants who risk seas and deserts to supply your table. You raise the goblet. The wine within is deep red, heavier than any grape could grow in your soil. It has travelled perhaps from Gascony or beyond. The sweetness hides its strength. You sip, slow, letting the liquid coat your tongue, but as you swallow, a thought pricks your mind. Quiet, cold, what if the cup carries more than wine? For nobles, poison is never a fairy tale. It is an old companion, Chronicles tell of dukes who died after a toast, of counts struck down at their wedding feasts. Some claim subtle powders were mixed with salt, or deadly herbs crushed into sauces. Others whisper of rings hollowed to drip venom into a rival's drink. Whether true or not, the fear remains. To drink is to trust is to risk. You set the goblet down, fingers lingering on the stem. Across the hall, laughter swells. A knight leans close to another, speaking in whispers. A lady touches her lips with the rim of her cup, then glances at you before sipping. Was it chance? Was it meaning? The thought curls in your gut. The second course arrives. Heavier now. Venison, hunted in your forests, served with black pepper so costly that each pinch could pay a peasant's tax. A pie follows, crust thick, filling of pigeon and rabbit and boiled egg. The smell of cinnamon threads through it. You break the crust with your knife, steam rising, and for a moment you let the warmth distract you. Music grows louder. A lute strums, a pipe trills. Children of lesser nobles dart between benches, catching scraps. Dogs, sleek and trained, slip under the tables to snap bones from the rushes. The hall is a riot of sound, colour, scent. A visitor from centuries ahead might find it overwhelming, but to you it is the rhythm of life, the reassurance of order. Still, the goblet waits. A servant refills it, careful to bow, eyes lowered so they will not linger on your face. The wine glints in the candlelight. You lift it once more. The hall presses in, noise rising like a tide. You drink not because thirst demands it, but because custom commands it. The warmth slides down your throat, heavy, intoxicating. For a moment you taste only the sweetness, the comfort of ritual. Yet still the thought lingers, that trust is the cost of every swallow. By the meal's end, trenchers sag with grease, candles drip into pools of wax, torches hiss in their sockets. The musicians tire, yet the laughter still roars. Platters of sugared almonds and spiced wine signal closure, sweets meant to cleanse the mouth and gild memory. You lean back in your chair, stomach heavy, senses blurred. Servants hurry to clear away remains, to scatter new herbs on the rushes, to hush the dogs now fat with scraps. Your eyes fall once more to the goblet, now empty. Its rim gleams, clean. Tonight, you live, but in every feast the thought remains. Death could hide in a swallow, treachery in a toast. The hall dims, torches lowered, laughter fading into murmurs. You rise, cloak draped across your shoulders, and step away from the table. Behind you, the fire still smoulders, banners still hang, music still sighs. Ahead, the corridor waits, cooler, quieter, ready to swallow you back into stone. Your breath slows as you walk. The meal lingers in your body, spice on your tongue, heat in your belly, suspicion in your thoughts. And as you slip back into the stillness of your chamber, you carry both fullness and unease, luxury and danger, always twinned. Hunting is no pastime here. It is a privilege, a law, and a power. In your world, one might slip on running shoes, leash the dog, and take to the park for exercise. The path is public. The air is free. In the 13th century, the forest was not a place of freedom. It was forbidden ground, claimed by the crown or by noble lords. To step among the trees without leave is trespass, and to kill a deer without warrant is a crime enough to hang a man. The hunt is not recreation. It is a theatre of dominance. You wake before dawn. The castle is hushed, though servants already stir. The faint smell of baking bread drifts from the kitchens, mingling with smoke still clinging to your chamber from the night before. A knock sounds at your door. Pages enter carrying garments for the day. A tunic of thick wool dyed green for the woods. Hose tied with cords at your waist. Boots high and stiff for stirrups. A cloak is folded over an arm, lined with fur, heavy, a shield against the morning's chill. Another servant brings a basin. The water bites your skin as you wash. Its cold is sharper than steel, waking every nerve. Fingers comb oil through your hair, pressing it flat. Your belt is fastened. Your dagger slid into its sheath. When you stand, the cloak drops across your shoulders with a satisfying weight. The day demands strength, and the clothes give you shape for it. From the courtyard comes the impatient snort of horses. You descend the spiral stair, boots striking stone in a rhythm that quickens your breath. Outside, mist curls across the yard. Torches gutter in the damp. Grooms hold restive destriers, their coats steaming in the cold. You see your mount, a great brown beast with eyes bright and nostrils flaring. He paws the ground, eager for movement. Stable boys strap the saddle tight, the leather creaking as they tug. The stirrups are checked, the bit glints with spittle. When you place your boot to the iron and swing into the seat, the horse surges forward, forcing the boy to leap aside. You gather the reins, feeling the animal's heat through the leather. A lance rests in your hand, its shaft polished smooth. Around you, the hunting party assembles. Men in cloaks of green and brown, women in gowns lined with fur, faces flushed from the cold. Horns gleam at their sides. Bows are strung tight, quivers feathered with arrows. Dogs strain at leashes, their voices already rising in eager howls. The steward calls out names, ensuring every guest and vassal is accounted for. In this gathering, to be seen is as important as to kill. The gates open. Hooves clatter over the drawbridge. Mist parts before you as the party rides out into the forest. The world narrows to the rhythm of hoofbeats, the creak of leather, the occasional crack of branches under weight. Above, the canopy drips last night's rain in cold kisses. The air smells of wet earth and pine resin, sharp and clean after the smoke of stone walls. Deeper in, the horns sound, a long blast, then another. The dogs surge forward, voices merging into a chorus of frenzy. Servants release them, and they vanish between trees, noses to ground, tails whipping. Your horse dances beneath you, muscles quivering, hungry to follow. You tighten your knees, lean low, and give the command. The beast leaps, hooves striking mud, breath tearing in clouds from his nostrils. The forest becomes motion. Branches whip at your cloak. Mud spatters your boots. The wind claws your hair from its order. The dogs bay ahead, closer, then farther, then closer again. You hear the thundering of hooves all around, the shouts of riders urging speed. Someone laughs. Another curses as a branch snatches his cap. The chase is chaos, wild and intoxicating. Then a change. A horn sounds sharp, urgent. The dogs' voices lift to a fever. Between the trees, a shape bursts forth. The deer, antlers wide, eyes white with terror. It bounds, impossibly fast, hooves scattering leaves in sprays of mud. For a heartbeat, you see only its back, its breath rising like smoke. Then instinct pulls your body forward. You dig heels into your mount. The horse lunges. The world shrinks to the chase. Every stride pounds through your bones. Every turn a risk of falling. You grip the lance tighter, lowering its tip. The deer weaves swift and desperate, its flanks glistening with sweat. Arrows hiss past, loosed by riders at your side, some striking earth, others grazing branches. The animal stumbles at a stream, hooves skidding on slick stone. In that heartbeat, you are upon it. You level the lance. Feel the shudder as wood meets flesh. A cry bursts from the deer, high and terrible, then ends as the body collapses into the mud. Your horse plunges past, dragging you with the momentum, until at last you haul the reins and turn. The clearing is chaos. Dogs snapping, riders shouting, horns blaring. Servants rush forward to hold the hounds, to secure the carcass. Blood runs into the stream, bright against the water's sheen. Steam rises from the deer's body, mixing with the breath of men and beasts alike. You dismount. Mud clings to your boots, the earth sucking at every step. A servant kneels, drawing a knife across the deer's throat in ritual stroke. offering thanks to God and Lord alike for the quarry. Another raises the head high, antlers spread, a trophy for all to see. Applause erupts, gloved hands clapping, voices cheering. Some guests lift goblets they carried, toasting your strike, praising your aim. Others glance with envy, their smiles stretched thin. For peasants, this sight would mean death. To hunt deer without license is to steal the Lord's treasure, to risk gallows or mutilation. Yet for you, it is celebration, proof of your right to rule. The same act that would doom a villager exalts you. The body is bound, slung across a horse to be carried back to the castle. It will be skinned, its hide tanned, its flesh roasted for the evening's feast. Venison, sweetened with spice and wine, will lie on trenchers before your high table, and every guest will know it was you who struck the killing blow. The ride home is slower. The mist has lifted, revealing the pale sky. Birds scatter from the trees, startled by the echo of horns. Your horse's flanks are white with lather, your own hands stiff from the chill and the grip of the lance. The dogs pad alongside, tongues lolling, eyes bright with triumph. When you pass the village, peasants look up from their fields. They pause, leaning on hoes and rakes, eyes tracking the procession. They smell the blood, see the antlers, hear the horns. For them, meat is rare, venison rarer still. Tonight they will eat barley gruel while you dine on their lord's forest. They know it, and you know it. The divide is as sharp as steel. At the gates, trumpets sound. The drawbridge lowers, hooves strike stone once more. Servants rush to meet you, to take the deer, to stable the horses, to ready the hall. The hunt is over, but its echoes will carry through the day into kitchens, into gossip, into memory. You dismount, legs stiff, cloak damp, hair wild. The forest smell clings to you. Wet earth, sweat, blood, pine. You hand the reins to a groom and walk back into the castle's stone embrace. Behind you the carcass drips. Ahead the hall waits, already warm with fire, already hungry for triumph. The chase is finished. The feast will begin. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from and what time is it there right now? Honor, in your century, is often a word for reputation. A profile on a glowing screen, a measure of likes, a contract carefully worded and signed. Disputes are settled with lawyers or ignored until they fade into noise. In the Middle Ages, honor is not paperwork or rumor. It is your life's marrow, the blood in your veins. To lose it is to be unmade. To defend it is to risk your body against steel. You are called before dawn. The chamber is black. The rushes on the floor damp with last night's mist. A knock, low, urgent, wakes you from shallow sleep. A servant enters, his face pale in the candlelight. He does not need to speak. You already know. The challenge was given last night. In the hall, after too much wine and too many words, to refuse is shame. To accept is peril. Your clothes wait, laid out with grim care. A padded doublet to soften the bite of steel. Hose tied tight at the waist. Boots of leather rubbed with tallow to guard against wet grass. Over it a surcoat bearing your crest, bright against the darkness, so there is no mistaking who bleeds if blood is spilled. Your sword belt is fastened around your waist. The weight of the blade at your side is heavier than any cloak, heavier even than fear. You descend the stair. The castle still sleeps, but in the courtyard a small group waits. Your second solemn-faced, a priest clutching his psalter, two squires carrying torches that sputter in the damp air. They do not speak as you approach. Words would break the fragile silence of this hour. Only the dogs bark, restless at the scent of unease. The gates creak open. You pass out into the grey of dawn. Mist lies low, clinging to the grass, wrapping trees in gauze. The world is muffled, as though nature itself holds its breath. The path crunches under your boots. wet earth sucking at every step. Ahead, the meadow clears, a flat space chosen for this moment. The dew glitters pale, 1,000 tiny mirrors waiting to be broken by feet and blood. Your opponent stands at the far end. He is cloaked, his sword at his side. 2 men attend him, one carrying a flask, the other a roll of bandages. His face is drawn, the set of his jaw hard. You cannot hear his breath, but you know it quickens like your own. He, too, has been woken by fear, dressed by servants, marched in silence. Now he waits for you because pride allows no retreat. The ritual begins. The priest steps forward, his voice low, words of blessing mixing with mist. Few duels are sanctioned by the church. Most are condemned. Yet men of God appear at them all the same, to give the last rites in case death claims one or both. His Latin drones, but your ears fix only on the beat of your heart. Your second steps in. He speaks the words of formality, offering reconciliation. The offer is refused. The quarrel was too sharp, the insult too cutting. No apology can mend what pride has torn. The rules are declared swords only, no mounted charge. Fight until blood is drawn or one cannot stand. You nod, so does he. The swords are drawn, steel whispers against leather. The sound is final, unmistakable. The mist curls around the blades, catching the pale light of dawn. You step forward, so does he. The distance shrinks, the meadow closing in around you. The first clash rings like a bell. Your arm shakes with the shock, the steel vibrating into your shoulder. You step back, boots slipping in wet grass, then lunge again. Blades meet, scrape, twist. Breath comes in gasps, clouds spilling into the air with every movement. Your opponent's eyes are fierce, his jaw set. He is not here to threaten, he is here to wound. The fight is quick, brutal, without flourish. There is no dance, no performance, only survival. He strikes high, you parry, sparks fly, you slash low, he leaps aside. The ground betrays you both, slick with dew, each step a risk of falling. Once you stumble, knees dipping into mud, and only the desperate strength of your arm keeps his blade from your throat. A minute feels like an hour. Each breath burns, each muscle screams. The world narrows to the ring of steel, the heave of lungs, the pounding of blood in your ears. Around you the seconds watch in silence. The priest mutters prayers, his voice trembling now. At last your strike lands. The edge of your blade cuts across his arm, slicing cloth and skin. Blood blooms, dark against the pale of dawn. He staggers, breath hissing through his teeth. His sword lowers, not dropped but heavy, unsteady. The fight ends. He yields, his second rushing forward to bind the wound. The priest steps in, pressing his psalter to his chest, whispering thanks to heaven. Your own arm trembles as you lower your sword. The blade drips with dew and blood alike, indistinguishable in the morning grey. There is no cheer, no applause. A duel is not a tournament. It is necessity, not sport. To win is relief, not joy. To lose would have been ruin. Of body, of name, of family honour. You breathe hard, chest heaving, sweat chilling on your skin. You look at your opponent, and in his eyes you see no hatred now, only exhaustion. He has preserved his pride by standing, and you have preserved yours by prevailing. The meadow holds the silence for a long moment. The mist curls higher, as though trying to erase the scene. Servants collect the torches, their light pale now in the growing day. The dogs bark once more, restless to return to ordinary life. You sheath your sword. The weight at your side feels heavier than before, as though it remembers. Your cloak is damp with dew, your boots soaked through. You turn back toward the castle, the path soft and sucking underfoot. Behind you the others linger, tending to wounds, whispering what will soon spread through the halls. Who fought, who struck, who bled. By the time you pass back through the gate, The castle stirs with life. Servants sweep the hall, cooks stoke fires, children of squires chase one another through the yard. The world has resumed, as though dawn brought nothing but chores and noise. Yet you carry the duel with you still. The clash of steel, the rush of fear, the sting of triumph. Inside your chamber, you remove the surcoat, its fabric darkened by sweat. You sit on the straw mattress, the same scratch of linen beneath you, and for a moment your hands will not stop trembling. The duel is over. Honor is intact. But the knowledge remains, it could just as easily have been you left bleeding in the meadow, your name whispered, not with respect but with pity. And so you lie back, staring at the damp ceiling, hearing once more the echo of steel in your ears. Pride saved, life preserved, but always at the edge of loss. In your century journeys are chosen, a few taps on a screen, a book ticket, a passport in your pocket. If you tire of the road, you return. In the Middle Ages, journeys were oaths. When you vow to take the cross, you do not simply plan a trip. You bind your soul. There is no pause, no refund, no turning back without shame. It begins with the cloth itself, a simple cross, often red, stitched crudely onto your surcoat by the hand of a priest. When he sets the needle through fabric, he also sets it through your flesh, for now you belong not to your household but to Christ's army. To refuse the call once taken is not mere cowardice, it is sin. Papal bulls promise forgiveness, the washing of guilt, even paradise itself if you die on the road. The promise is dazzling, intoxicating, and terrifying. The castle is full of talk. Minstrels sing of Jerusalem, of the Holy Sepulchre, of relics and miracles. Knights whisper of lands to be won, ransoms to be claimed, treasure seized from the infidel. Women weep and pray, sewing crosses for sons and husbands. Servants pack chests, fill flasks, polish armor, until the torchlight gleams on steel. The very air hums with the weight of departure. Your decision is not simple. To go is to risk plague, famine, thirst, and the blade of an enemy whose tongue you do not even understand. Chronicles tell of men who perished not in battle but in the desert, their bones left whitening under the sun. Yet to stay is worse. To remain while others ride is to admit weakness, to court suspicion, to be remembered as a lord unwilling to shed blood for God. The morning of departure dawns sharp and grey. The courtyard is chaos. Horses stamping, carts creaking, men-at-arms shouting. The smith hammers one last rivet into a helmet. The chaplain raises his voice in blessing, Latin syllables cracked by emotion. The women of the household stand clustered near the gate, their faces veiled with sorrow, some clutching infants, others rosaries. The younger servants weep openly, though they know it is not their tears but their labour that will be remembered. You mount your horse. The weight of chainmail presses into your shoulders, every link biting down like responsibility itself. A surcoat hangs over it, the cross bright upon your chest. Your sword is belted tight, its hilt polished smooth by countless hands. Around you the banners of your house snap in the wind, their colours bold against the grey sky. The gate creaks open. Trumpets sound. The procession begins. Hooves clatter across the drawbridge, echoing against stone walls one last time. Villagers gather along the road, their faces upturned. Some cheer, others stare in silence, their expressions unreadable. They know what your absence means. Heavier taxes, stricter stewards, the uncertainty of a lord gone to fight, in a land they will never see. The road stretches before you, muddy and endless. The first days are slow, heavy with supplies, carts groan under barrels of water, sacks of grain, casks of wine. Pages run back and forth, adjusting straps, tending wounds on horses already rubbed raw by saddles. At night, tents sprout like mushrooms in fields. Fires flicker, smoke drifts into the damp sky. Men pray, men drink, men quarrel. The journey has only begun. yet weariness already hangs over the camp. As the miles pass, the world changes. Villages grow strange. Accents twist into sounds your ear does not know. Bread tastes different, flatter, heavier, water smells of iron. You hear stories from travellers of heat so fierce it blisters the skin, of seas that stretch farther than courage, of enemies who fight not for coin or crown, but for God, as fiercely as you claim to. At a river crossing, you pause. The water runs swift, swollen by spring rains. Men curse as carts sink, horses panic, barrels break loose and swirl away. You stand on the bank, the spray cold on your face, and you wonder, is this how it will end? Not in glory, not at the gates of Jerusalem, but drowned in a river far from home. But you press on. You must. The vow binds tighter than any chain. At night, you dream of deserts you have never seen, of walls you have never touched, of tombs that may or may not hold the Christ you seek. You dream too of your castle, of damp stone, of the crackle of fire, of the faces of those you left behind. You wonder if they dream of you. Weeks stretch into months. Roads grow harsher, food scarcer, men fall sick. Some are buried by the roadside, crosses of sticks marking graves that no one will tend. Others slip away in the dark, deserters whose names will be spat upon for generations. Still others grow wild, drunk on freedom and fear, sacking villages they pass, their cruelty staining the very cross they wear. And yet, through all this, the purpose holds. To fight is to be cleansed, to die is to be forgiven. The Pope's promise burns in your mind brighter than any torch. You tell yourself that if you fall, the gates of heaven will swing wide, that your sins, your cruelties, your prides, your indulgences will be washed away in blood and dust. One evening you crest a hill and see it. The sea, vast, glittering, endless. Its smell hits you first, sharp and salty. Unlike any river, waves crash against rocks. Gulls wheel overhead. The men cheer, their voices ragged with awe. For many, this is the first time they have seen the edge of the world. Ships wait in the harbour below, their masts spearing the sky. The journey will continue, not by land but by water, carrying you toward heat, dust, and the holy city. You stand at the ridge, wind whipping your cloak, the cross on your chest tugged by the air. Behind you lies your home, your hall, your family. Ahead lies uncertainty, perhaps salvation, perhaps death. You breathe deep, tasting salt, and feel the weight of the vow anchor you in place. The sun sets, painting the sea in fire. Your horse shifts beneath you, restless, sensing your tension. The men around you fall quiet, each lost in thought. The road has brought you here. The sea will carry you farther. And still the promise burns that at the end of this endless journey lies not just Jerusalem, but eternity itself. In your world, inequality is measured in salaries, in zip codes, in the glow of different screens. One person commutes in a heated car while another waits in the rain for a late bus. Some scroll through menus of food to be delivered in minutes, while others stretch a paycheck to cover bread and milk. The Middle Ages knows inequality too, but here it is not subtle. It is carved into law, stitched into birth, and declared by God's own voice through priests and bishops. You stand at the top of your tower. The wind pulls at your cloak, snapping it like a banner. Below, the land unfolds in strips and squares, each one marked not by fences but by toil. Ploughed furrows stretch like scars across the soil. Tiny figures bend over them, shoulders stooped, arms rising and falling in rhythm with hoes and rakes. From this height, they are small, faceless, nameless, but they are your wealth, your power, your living foundation. The peasants labour from dawn to dusk. They till the fields, sow the grain, cut the hay, and gather the harvest. Every sheaf they lift carries the weight of your table. Their taxes flow upward in coin, in wheat, in chickens and eggs, in pigs fattened through the year. They repair your roads, dig your ditches, mend your walls, And still they owe more days of unpaid service called corvée, hauling stones for your castle or cutting timber for your hall. The calendar of their lives is a calendar of your demands. You, by contrast, rise when the chamber is warm, when servants light the fire and fetch your garments. Your hands are soft enough that the quill leaves blisters. Your body strong not from labour but from training in arms. You train with sword and lance because you may one day need to fight, but you do not toil because you must. Others toil for you. At harvest time the difference is sharpest. In the fields, men and women swing sickles under the sun until their backs ache and their hands bleed. They pray for enough grain to pay their rent, to bake their bread, to keep their children from starving when winter closes in. In the castle, you watch wagons arrive heavy with sacks. Your steward tallies them in chalk, measuring the yield not by hunger but by percentage owed. A portion will go to the king, yes, but most remains here in your stores, feeding your household and funding your ambitions. The law supports the divide. A peasant who hunts a deer in your forest risks death. A peasant who gathers too much wood may face whipping. A peasant who cannot pay rent may lose his strip of land altogether. Yet you may ride into the forest at dawn, lance levelled, dogs leaping, and return with venison enough to roast for 50. You may command hunts for sport, while they would die for meat. Even their homes mirror the gap. Step into a peasant's hut, a single room, walls of wattle and daub, roof of thatch, floor of dirt. Smoke curls from a fire pit, its sting filling the air because there is no chimney. Chickens scratch in the straw. Children huddle for warmth, lice crawl in the bedding. Compare it to your hall, high-roofed, lined with tapestries, rushes changed when stinking, fires blazing in great hearths. Even in your worst discomfort, the draughts, the rats, the damp, your life is still wealth beyond their imagining. Religion confirms the order. Priests tell them they are sheep, meant to obey. They are taught that God placed kings above lords, lords above knights, knights above peasants. To rise against this is not only treason but heresy. Their reward, if any, lies not here but in heaven. If they labour well, if they pay their tithes, if they accept their station with humility. You are told the same, but in your version of the sermon, it is your duty to protect and command, to shepherd and to rule. Both stories serve the same end, to keep the world unmoving. And yet, not all is cruelty. Some peasants laugh at the edge of the field, sharing bread and ale in stolen moments. They marry for love more often than you, whose alliances are arranged. Their children run barefoot through grass, free in ways yours are not. When the harvest is good and the winter mild, their huts are noisy with songs and tales, their hearts as full as any noble's. Hardship breeds its own kind of joy, a survival you can glimpse but never truly grasp. Still, the weight of the divide presses daily. One afternoon you walk the yard. A tenant kneels, head bowed, hat clutched in trembling hands. He begs for mercy. Hail has ruined his barley. He cannot pay his rent. His voice is raw. His children stand behind him, thin and silent. You know the law. You could seize his ox, his only wealth. You could drive him from the land. Instead, you speak slowly, granting a delay, a half rent, perhaps remission. Mercy costs you little, but to him it is salvation. His eyes brim with tears, his lips stammer blessings. For weeks, perhaps years, he will tell the story of your kindness, and you in turn will tell yourself it proves the rightness of the order, that nobility is needed, because only those with power can dispense mercy. At times you wonder, when you look from the tower and see the endless fields, the bent backs, the hands black with soil, the endless cycle of labour that never ends, do they envy you? Do they despise you? Do they whisper in their huts of rebellion, of justice, of a world without lords? You shake the thought away, but the memory of past uprisings haunts every noble heart. Charters and chronicles record them, peasants who rose with scythes and axes, burning manors, killing stewards. They are rare, crushed quickly, but their shadows remind you that the divide is not unbreakable. Evening falls. From your window you watch the peasants file home, their bodies stooped, their faces hidden by the fading light. Smoke curls from the village huts, carrying the smell of turnip stew and coarse bread. In your hall, servants set the table for supper. Venison from the hunt, pottage rich with spices, sweet wine poured into silver goblets. The contrast presses in from all sides. Their smoke is thin, yours thick. Their bowls are wooden, yours carved from horn and set on linen. Their lives bend to survival, yours bends to display. Yet both rise with the same dawn, shiver in the same winter, bury their children under the same earth. You breathe, slow and steady. The land is yours, the people are yours, and yet you are theirs as well, bound to them as surely as they are bound to you. Their labour is your banquet, their coin your armour, their sweat your stone walls. Without them, your castle would fall silent, your table bare. You command them, but you depend on them. As the fire crackles in your hall, you close your eyes for a moment. You picture the fields again, the small figures bending, sewing, cutting. You see their lives stretch on, season after season, an unbroken rhythm that feeds your own. The divide endures. But it is not absolute, for as long as they labour, you rule, and as long as you rule, they labour. Two halves of a world, unequal, inseparable, and eternal. For now, in your century, marriage is often spoken of as a choice. Two people meet, they share time, they decide, sometimes for love, sometimes for companionship, sometimes for convenience. They can change their minds, dissolve their vows, begin again. In the Middle Ages, marriage among the nobility was not a matter of choice. It is not about hearts, but about lands, not about feelings, but about families. It is a treaty written in flesh, a map drawn in rings and vows. Your marriage is decided long before you stand at the altar. Letters pass between households, sealed in wax and carried by trusted men. Negotiations drag on for months, sometimes years. Dowries are debated, titles weighed, inheritance is calculated. A girl of 12 might already be promised, her childhood shadowed by alliances struck at her birth. A boy of 15 may be sent abroad, betrothed to a bride he has never seen. The words are polite, but the truth is blunt. Marriages bind estates and secure power. Love, if it comes, is accidental. The morning of your wedding dawns heavy with incense. The castle stirs with unusual urgency. Servants rush through corridors carrying garlands of herbs and flowers to disguise the stink of rushes. Candles are lit in every chapel alcove, wax dripping onto stone floors already worn smooth by generations of knees. In your chamber, attendants dress you with deliberate care. A linen shirt first, then silk. If your wealth permits, its coolness brushing your skin like water. Over it, wool dyed in colours reserved for your house, perhaps crimson, perhaps deep blue, perhaps green from rare woad. A belt studded with silver cinches your waist, and at your neck a brooch glimmers more symbol than ornament. You stand still as they fasten each piece, yet inside your stomach twists. Today you will be joined to another not because you chose, but because your families willed it. You imagine her face, perhaps glimpsed once across a hall, perhaps never at all. You know her dowry, acres of farmland, a chest of coins, a claim to titles. You know less of her laugh, her temper, her dreams. Those are not listed in charters. The procession to the chapel begins. Horns sound low, solemn. Guests line the path, their eyes bright with curiosity. Some whisper, calculating what this union means, how it shifts alliances, what threats it secures, what rivalries it sparks. Children press close to see, their fingers sticky with crumbs from the morning feast. The air smells of sweat and flowers both, pungent and strange. At the altar, the priest waits. His voice carries authority, the voice not only of church but of eternity. Marriage is indissoluble. He will remind you, To tear it apart is to tear apart what God has joined. He holds the psalter high, its pages marked with ribbons, its edges dark from countless hands. She arrives, veiled, her gown heavy with embroidery. Gold thread glitters at the cuffs, pearls stitched at the hem. Her steps are slow, guided by attendants. When she reaches the altar, her veil is lifted, and you see her eyes at last, perhaps kind, perhaps wary, perhaps unreadable. She does not smile, neither do you. The gravity of the moment forbids it. The vows are spoken, words of Latin roll from your lips, rehearsed yet trembling. You take her hand. It is small, cool, ringed with gold. A cord is wrapped around your joined hands, binding them together as the priest intones blessing. The kiss is brief, perfunctory, watched by every gaze in the chapel. With it, two families become one body. Afterward, the feast begins. If the morning was solemn, the evening is riotous. Tables groan under venison, swan pies stuffed with spiced meats, ale and wine flow until voices blur. Minstrels sing, dancers whirl, fools caper for laughter. Guests measure the wealth of your household in the abundance of food, in the shine of plate, in the number of courses served. Each dish is a declaration that your new alliance is strong, fertile, lavish. Yet amid the clamour, your mind strays. You watch her across the table. She eats little, speaking in whispers to the woman beside her. Her gown glitters in torchlight, but her shoulders slope with weariness. You wonder if she too feels like a guest at her own joining. The night closes in, and with it, the final ritual. You are led to the chamber, the bed strewn with herbs meant to spark fertility, rosemary and fennel, thyme and rue. Candles flicker, casting shadows across the embroidered hangings. Servants withdraw, though not before witnesses confirm that you and she lie down together, proof that the marriage is sealed in body, as well as word. Privacy, in truth, is rare. You lie beside her. The air smells of smoke and sweat, of herbs crushed underfoot. You hear her breath, quick, shallow. You reach for her hand. It trembles. You are strangers bound tighter than any friends, united not for yourselves, but for all those who will live or die by the children you may bring forth. In the days that follow, life resumes its rhythm. She takes her place in the household, overseeing servants, managing accounts, weaving tapestries, bearing herself with dignity. You take your place at court and in the field, commanding men, enforcing law, dispensing judgment. Together you appear in the hall, symbols of unity. In private you may grow closer, or not. Many noble couples remain courteous strangers, their affection spent on children, on hawks, on horses, on prayer. Some find tenderness, others endure. Marriage by alliance is both burden and armour. It ties you to allies you may not trust, binds you to kin you barely know, and secures wealth you may never touch. Yet it protects your house from isolation, ensures your name endures, and places your heirs within a web of power that stretches across counties and kingdoms. Occasionally you allow yourself a thought. What if you had chosen? What if, like the peasants in their huts, you had married for love, for laughter, for the warmth of a face you cherished? The thought drifts like smoke, tempting, unreal. For peasants, marriage is a matter of affection and survival. For you, it is strategy and eternity. Even so, in quiet moments you glance at her across the room. Sometimes her eyes meet yours, and sometimes they soften. Perhaps in time affection will come. Perhaps not. But whether love grows or withers, the alliance holds. And that, in the ledger of noble life, is what matters most. In your world, a woman may step into an office, open a laptop, make decisions that ripple across continents. She might run a company, a household, or both. In the Middle Ages, noble women rarely ride into battle or stand in court as judges, but their chambers hum with influence all the same. The women's spaces of a castle are not idle corners. They are engines of management, politics, and survival. Noble women sit together here, gowns heavy with wool and silk, fingers busy with embroidery. Their stitches are not only decoration but declaration, coats of arms for banners, symbols of saints for altar cloths, heraldic beasts for wedding gifts. Each pattern is a line of history, every needle prick a claim of lineage. The rustle of thread is the quiet sound of power being woven. You enter the ladies' chambers at mid-morning. The air is warm with the glow of a brazier, scented with herbs hung from beams, lavender for freshness, rosemary for protection, sage for cleansing. Sunlight seeps through a narrow window covered in horn, turning the room golden and dim at once. The walls are lined with tapestries half finished, threads trailing like frozen rainbows. A loom creaks gently, wood stretching as a girl presses the shuttle back and forth. Your wife sits among them, her veil pinned with jeweled clasps, her posture poised though her shoulders ache from stillness. She directs the others with calm authority, which cloth to finish first, which colours to save, which designs to send to the chapel. At her side a handmaiden reads aloud from a book of hours, her voice soft and rhythmic, Latin syllables falling like drops of water into the room. Few women here can read, fewer still own books, yet the sound alone is prayer enough. Beyond embroidery and gossip lies real labour. Your lady keeps tallies of stores. How many barrels of flour remain? How many wheels of cheese? How many bolts of linen for servants' clothes? She decides how many candles to order from the chandler, how many herbs to grow in the garden for medicine. When you ride away to war or court, she oversees stewards and reeves, ensuring that rents are collected, accounts balanced, disputes judged. Her seal pressed in wax carries almost as much weight as your own. A servant girl enters with a tray. She sets down cups of spiced wine, small pastries filled with dried fruit, bowls of almonds. The women pause their work, stretching stiff fingers, sipping carefully. Conversation rises, hushed but constant. They speak of children who has fallen ill, who has begun to walk, who is betrothed to whom. They whisper of men as well, though never too loudly, who argued in the hall, who eyes another's wife, who drank too much last night at the hearth. The chambers are an echo chamber, collecting secrets that flow back into the wider household. Children bustle through the chambers. Daughters learn their stitches early. Small fingers, clumsy but eager. Sons, too young for tutors, play with carved wooden knights, staging battles across the rushes on the floor. A nursemaid hushes a crying infant, rocking gently, her lullaby half prayer, half chant. The chamber is noisy in its own way, though quieter than the great hall below. Here, women rule the rhythm. The chamber also guards more intimate rituals. Chests lined with linen hold perfumes distilled from roses, pomanders stuffed with cloves and nutmeg, powders to soften the skin. Combs of bone and ivory lie beside mirrors polished from metal, their surfaces blurry but serviceable. Women sit before these chests as they prepare for feasts or visits, their handmaidens twisting braids, pinning veils, fastening girdles. The labour is communal. Many hands shaping one image, each touch a thread in the tapestry of status. Clothing is a world unto itself. Wool is common, but silk is prized, shimmering even in low light. The gowns are layered. A chemise against the skin, a kirtle of wool, an overdress of finer fabric. Colours speak as loudly as crests. Reds and purples signal wealth, greens and blues show costly dyes. White displays purity, but is ruinously hard to keep. Girdles hang with keys, scissors, purses, the signs of household management. A noble woman jingles when she walks, the sound of her authority in tiny metallic notes. Your wife calls you into the chamber once. She holds a letter, sealed with wax, carried by a messenger from her family's estate. She reads it softly, her voice steady, though her eyes flicker with something you cannot name. Fear, longing, anger. The letter speaks of disputes over land, of rumours at court, of kin in need of aid. She looks at you, and in that gaze you see how alliances stretch beyond halls and feasts. The women in these chambers weave not only cloth but networks of loyalty, webs of obligation, strings of influence that reach far beyond their walls. Sometimes the chambers ring with joy, a birth, a betrothal, a feast of women alone where music and laughter rise unrestrained. Sometimes they ring with grief, a miscarriage, a death, a stillbirth. In those moments the chamber becomes a sanctuary. No men enter, no servants whisper. Women sit together, holding hands, offering prayers, sharing silence. The walls seem to absorb their sorrow, as though stone itself carries memory. Yet these chambers are not only about care, they are about danger too. Childbirth haunts the space like a shadow. The midwife's stool waits in the corner, worn smooth by use, its wood dark with oil. Women here pray to saints for safe delivery, hang charms of iron and herbs near beds, whisper stories of those who survived and those who did not. Each pregnancy is both hope and hazard, for heirs are the lifeblood of noble houses, but the bearing of them can end a woman's life. In the politics of your age, battles are fought with swords and lances, but within these walls, battles are fought with thread and ink, with patience and presence, and just as often they decide the fate of families and lands as surely as any clash of arms. As noon bells toll, the women rise. Some carry baskets of mending for the servants' garments, others gather children to hand over to tutors or nurses. The loom stands silent for now, its shuttle resting like a sword sheathed. The air smells of herbs and wax, of wool and faint wine. Light slants through the horn window, scattering across the floor in hazy stripes. You step back into the corridor. The noise of the great hall rises, boots on stone, dogs barking, men shouting. But the memory of the chamber lingers, the quiet industry, the rustle of fabric, the whispered power of women who shape the household, even as they seem hidden from it. You breathe out, slow. The ladies' chambers are behind you, but their influence walks with you, stitched into every banner, balanced in every ledger, whispered in every prayer. In your world, children grow up surrounded by schools, books, and glowing screens that stream lessons from far away. Knowledge is scattered like grain, waiting to be gathered by anyone with time and patience. In the Middle Ages, knowledge was scarce, rare, and sharply divided. A peasant child may never touch parchment or quill. A noble child, by contrast, is expected to carry the weight of generations, and the tools of that burden are drilled into him from the moment he can stand. The chamber of the schoolroom is cold even in summer. Sunlight slips through narrow slits, painting golden lines across the table where parchments lie. The smell is of ink and leather, of wax from the candles burning despite the day. On the bench sits the heir, your son, his feet not yet reaching the ground, his fingers stained black from the ink he clumsily wields. Across from him the tutor waits, a stern man in a long robe, hair tonsured at the crown, eyes sharp as the quill in his hand. Latin is the key. Every morning begins with declensions and conjugations, words repeated until the child's tongue stumbles and then steadies. Amo, amo, amo. I love, you love. He scratches the words onto parchment, the quill squeaking, ink blotting when his hand trembles. To read Latin is to open the door to scripture, to law, to diplomacy. Without it, a noble is mute in the world of power. Beside Latin comes French, the language of courts and kings. Your son learns to greet, to command, to flatter. He recites phrases until his voice is hoarse. Sometimes he glances at you, hoping for approval, but you remain still. He must learn that your pride is not given cheaply. The lessons are not only of words. Arithmetic follows, the counting of rents, the measuring of fields, the tallying of grain. The tutor sets stones on the table, moving them into patterns. Your son must add, subtract, divide, multiply, until numbers flow like water through his head. Mistakes are met with sharp words, sometimes sharper blows. For the heir of a noble house, ignorance is as dangerous as cowardice. After the quill is set aside, the sword is taken up. The courtyard becomes the second schoolroom. A squire hands the boy a wooden blade too heavy for his arms, but he must learn to bear it. He swings, clumsy at first, the wood thudding against a post wrapped in straw, again, until sweat beads on his brow and his arms tremble. The master-at-arms corrects his stance, forces his feet wide, shoves his shoulder back. A blow across the knuckles if he falters. Bruises bloom, but he does not cry. To cry is weakness, and weakness dishonours the line. He learns to ride as well, thrown onto a pony, clinging with his knees while the beast trots and bucks. By the end of the day he is sore, exhausted, but proud. The rhythm repeats. Morning in books, afternoon with blades, evening in prayer. The chaplain teaches him psalms, the proper gestures at Mass, the mysteries of saints. He learns that kings rule by God's will, that nobles defend his order, that peasants serve because it is ordained. He learns that rebellion is sin, loyalty is salvation. These truths are pressed into him as deeply as any lesson in Latin or swordplay. Your daughter, too, is taught, though differently. In the lady's chamber she learns letters enough to read prayers, to keep household accounts, to compose polite letters. She learns to weave, to embroider, to manage servants. She is taught how to pour wine, how to smile without showing teeth, how to speak softly but listen sharply. Above all, she learns obedience to father, to husband, to God. Yet within that obedience lies subtle power, for she will one day guide a household of her own, perhaps even estates if widowed. The contrast with peasant children is stark. While your son scratches Latin verbs, peasant boys chase crows from fields or herd pigs through mud. While your daughter stitches silk, peasant girls haul water from the well, grind grain at the quern, scrub clothes in icy streams. Their lessons are of survival, not status. They learn to endure hunger, to weather cold, to labour until their bodies ache. They will never hold a book, never taste imported spices, never ride a horse for sport. At times you watch your children and wonder which path is heavier. Privilege shields them from hunger, yet it binds them with chains of expectation. Every word they write, every swing of the sword, is weighed with the burden of your lineage. A peasant child may laugh freely in the fields. Your child rarely laughs in lessons. One afternoon, the tutor sets a challenge. Your son must recite a passage from Scripture, flawlessly, without glance at the text. His voice wavers at first, then steadies, rolling the Latin syllables like stones across the floor. He stumbles once, cheeks flushing, then presses on. When he finishes, the tutor nods. Pride swells in your chest, though you hide it. You place a hand on his shoulder, brief but firm. He glows with the touch. In the yard, the master-at-arms pushes him harder. He must learn to strike, to parry, to endure. The wooden sword cracks against his ribs, knocking him to the ground. He gasps, curls, but rises again. His face is streaked with sweat and dust. His lips split, but he lifts the sword once more. The men-at-arms watching nod in approval. They see in him the beginnings of a knight, the makings of command. Your daughter watches from the balcony, embroidery forgotten in her lap. Her eyes shine with admiration, but also envy. She will never bear a sword, never ride to war. Her battles will be fought with whispers, with smiles, with the quiet strength of endurance. She lowers her gaze, resuming her stitches, though her mind lingers on the clash of wood below. Evening falls. The children gather in the hall, seated below the high table. They eat pottage thick with barley, bread baked fresh, sometimes a slice of meat if the hunt was good. They speak in low voices, careful of manners, practicing the etiquette drilled into them. Do not speak with your mouth full, do not reach too far, bow your head when addressed. Later, in the chamber, they kneel together for prayers. Their voices rise in chorus, thin but steady, as the chaplain blesses them. They climb into their beds, smaller sacks of straw than yours, but still softer than any peasant's floor. Candles are snuffed, darkness settles, and silence grows. You stand at the door a moment, watching them sleep. Their faces are slack, innocent, unburdened by the weight of names and titles. Yet you know that soon innocence will vanish, replaced by duty as relentless as stone. You turn away, the sound of their breathing fading into the corridor. The air is learning. The line will endure, but at what cost and with what scars, only time will tell. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? In your world, games are play. Stadiums roar with fans. Lights blaze. Referees enforce rules. An injury means a doctor rushing in. Cameras turned away. In the Middle Ages, tournaments are not play. They are war rehearsed in daylight. War dressed in colour and music. They are as dangerous as any battle, and yet as celebrated as any feast. The summons arrives weeks before. A herald rides into your yard, his cloak dust-stained, his trumpet blaring. He unrolls a scroll and proclaims the challenge, a tournament to be held in honour of a saint or a marriage, or simply the pride of a lord who wishes to display his wealth. Knights from across counties will attend, bearing their banners, their lances, their hunger for glory. To refuse such an invitation is unthinkable. To accept is to step into peril and pageantry alike. Preparation consumes the household. Armour is polished until it gleams, shields repainted with fresh coats of heraldry, surcoats mended and brightened. Horses are groomed daily, their coats brushed until they shine, their manes braided with ribbons. In the forge, the smith hammers fresh nails into shoes, sparks flying as he shapes steel to fit hooves that will thunder across the lists. Servants oil leather, mend straps, sharpen swords. The castle hums with tension, as if all its stones lean forward toward the coming day. At dawn, you ride out with your retinue. The road is crowded with others answering the same summons. Knights in chainmail, squires carrying lances, peasants hauling carts of provisions. By noon you see the field itself, a broad meadow transformed into spectacle. Wooden stands rise along the edges, hung with banners and pennants. Merchants set up stalls selling spiced wine, roasted nuts, trinkets shaped like shields and swords. The smell of horses, sweat and roasting meat fills the air. Drums beat to announce arrivals. Trumpets flare as each lord enters. You are led to the pavilion marked with your colours. Inside, rugs cover the grass, benches hold your retainers, and your armour gleams in the half-light. Pages move like ants, checking straps, heating water, carrying wine. Outside, the crowd swells, peasants pressed shoulder to shoulder, merchants leaning on stalls, ladies in fine gowns taking their places in the stands. For them, this is more than sport. It is a glimpse of power, of war brought safely within reach, a drama played out for their delight. The first contest begins. The joust. You mount your horse. The destrier pawing the ground, armour clinking with each shift. A squire hands you your lance, its shaft long and heavy, its tip blunted but still lethal if driven true. You lower the visor of your helm, and the world shrinks to a narrow slit of light. Across the lists, your opponent waits. His horse stamps, his banner flutters, trumpets blare. The marshal lowers his flag. The world explodes into motion. Your horse surges forward, hooves pounding like drums. The lance vibrates in your grip, its weight pulling your arm. The distance closes in heartbeats. Then impact, wood shatters against steel, a crack like thunder. Splinters fly, your arm jolts back, your chest slams against the saddle. You reel but hold, teeth clenched, the roar of the crowd muffled in your ringing ears. Your opponent wavers, then steadies, both of you surviving the first pass. Again, new lances brought, shafts polished, grips tight. Again the charge, the thunder, the crash. This time your lance strikes true, sliding along his shield, catching the joint of his shoulder. He is flung sideways, crashing into the dust. The crowd erupts, half in cheers, half in groans. His squires rush to him, dragging him away, his body limp, but breathing. Victory is yours for now. But the joust is only the beginning. Afterward comes the melee. Dozens of knights ride into the field, lances discarded for swords and maces. The melee is chaos. A storm of steel blows rain down from every side, shields splinter, horses rear and scream. Dust rises, choking, blinding. You swing until your arm aches, parry until your wrist burns. A mace slams your helm, ringing your skull, and you nearly fall. A squire drags you upright, shoves a new shield into your hand, pushes you back into the fray. The melee lasts an hour, maybe more. Time stretches in sweat and pain. Knights crash into each other, some captured, some ransomed, some carried away on stretchers. Though rules exist, yield when your helm is torn off. Spare a knight who calls mercy, blood runs freely. Bones break, teeth shatter, lives end. The crowd cheers louder with each fall, the danger heightening their thrill. At last, the horn sounds to call the end. You stagger from the field, armour dented, surcoat torn, body bruised. Servants rush to strip the steel from your shoulders. Their hands quick but gentle, sweat streams down your face, stinging cuts you did not even notice in the heat of battle. Wine is pressed into your hand, sweet and sharp, and you drink greedily, though it barely cools the fire in your chest. The evening feast crowns the day. Victors are praised, prizes given, a fine cloak, a purse of coin, a token from a lady's hand. Minstrels sing of the jousts, their verses already shaping memory into legend. The crowd is fed on bread, meat, and ale, their bellies as full as their eyes. For one night, the violence is softened into celebration. And yet, as you sit at the high table, bruises blooming under your tunic, you know the truth. The tournament is not only a game, it is training for war. It is a rehearsal for the field where lances will not splinter but pierce, where swords will not blunt but cut, where mercy will be scarce and death certain. You know this, and still you ride, because honour demands it, because glory beckons, because without it your name would fade into silence. As the torches gutter and the feast winds down, you lean back in your chair. The hall hums with laughter, but your body aches with every breath. You close your eyes and hear again the crack of lances, the roar of the crowd, the ring of steel. The tournament is over. The memory will linger, stitched into your body as bruise and scar. You rise slowly, cloak draped across your shoulders, and step into the night. The air is cool, the stars sharp. Behind you the revels continue, but ahead lies quiet. You walk back toward your pavilion, the grass damp under your boots, the scent of trampled earth thick in the air. The day has tested you. The day has exalted you, and in the silence of the night, you carry both triumph and exhaustion. In your world, faith may be a private matter. A person scrolls through a meditation app, lights a candle at home, or visits a church on a chosen day. Silence is rare, but it can be found. In the Middle Ages, faith was everywhere. It is the rhythm of bells that mark the hours, the painted saints on every wall, the relics guarded in gilded chests. You do not step into faith as you wish. It surrounds you, commands you, and judges you. You walk the narrow passage from hall to chapel. The air shifts the moment you pass under the carved archway. The scents change, no longer roasted meat and spiced wine, but wax and incense. Beeswax candles dripping slowly, clouds of smoke carrying the bitter sweetness of frankincense. The sound changes too. The hall was clamour, dogs, servants, laughter, shouting. Here, your boots strike stone in hollow echoes, each step magnified into the hush. The chapel is small but rich. Walls are painted with saints in robes of red and gold, halos glowing even in dim light. The Virgin gazes down with solemn tenderness, Christ on the cross with eyes that pierce as much as they console. Above the altar, a painted window filters dawn's light into colours that smear across the floor. Green, red, blue. The stone is cold under your knees as you kneel. You cross yourself, bowing low, words of prayer spilling from your lips. The Latin is rehearsed, learned from childhood, repeated so often that the syllables feel like breathing. Yet beneath the words lies unease, for you are noble and your life is steeped in violence. You have ordered men whipped, perhaps hanged. You have fought in tournaments where bones broke. You have taken land from others, taxed peasants until they wept, raised levies to feed wars. All of this weighs heavy, heavier even than the sword at your hip. The priest approaches quietly. His robe whispers against the floor. He bows, then gestures you toward the small wooden screen where confession is heard. You step inside, close the door, and the world shrinks to wood and shadow. Through the lattice, you see his silhouette, hear his breath. You confess. The words spill in fragments. Anger, greed, pride, cruelty. You speak of the duel at dawn, where you struck blood. You speak of peasants whose rents you raised. You speak of thoughts that linger, unholy and restless. Each sin drops into the dark like a stone into water. The priest listens, unmoving. When you finish, there is a pause, long, heavy, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Then his voice comes, low, steady, in Latin. He speaks of penance, of prayers to be said, of alms to be given. He absolves you in God's name, his words soft as cloth, yet sharp as steel. You leave the screen lighter, though the sins cling still, shadows that never vanish fully. That is the truth, you know. Forgiveness soothes, but it does not erase. You kneel again before the altar. The candles flicker, the painted Christ gazes down. You wonder if he is comforted by your prayers or angered by your deeds. Around you the chapel is never empty. Servants slip in quietly to pray for sick children. Women kneel with rosaries, whispering for safe childbirth. Soldiers beg protection before campaigns. Even beggars sometimes creep through the doors, their hands shaking as they cross themselves. The chapel is where all stand equal before the saints, though the seats remind them otherwise. Lords in the front, peasants at the back. A relic lies on the altar, sealed in crystal and gold. Perhaps a fragment of bone, perhaps a scrap of cloth, perhaps nothing at all, but faith made physical. Pilgrims come from villages to see it, to touch the reliquary, to believe that power flows from it into their flesh. You too touch it sometimes, though you are not sure if you believe or if you simply cannot afford not to. The priest reminds you often, nobles carry heavier burdens, to whom much is given, much is demanded. You must defend the weak, feed the hungry, protect the church, and yet you know that often you are the hand that strikes, the lord that demands, the one whose wealth rests on others' hunger. You bow lower, whisper longer, trying to balance the scale. On holy days the chapel swells with people, the bell tolls echoing across fields and forests, summoning all to mass. You process in with your household, banners lifted high. The villagers file in after, filling the aisles with their patched tunics and tired faces. The psalms rise, voices mingling, rich and poor, noble and peasant, all singing the same Latin words. Few understand their meaning, but all feel their weight. The priest lifts the host, white and round, the body of Christ. The air thickens with incense. Bells jingle as the altar boy swings the censer. You bow your head, heart pounding, mouth dry. In that moment, all your power seems small. Before God you are no lord, no knight, no master, only a soul fragile and desperate for mercy. When the mass ends, life resumes. The villagers shuffle out, the servants hurry back to chores, the dogs bark again in the yard. But for a while the hush lingers in your bones. You carry it with you into the hall, into the noise, into the day. At night, when the torches gutter and the corridors fall silent, you return sometimes, alone. You kneel in the dark, the candles burned low, the painted saints looming in shadow. You whisper prayers not for show but for survival. You pray for your family, for your land, For your soul, you pray that when death comes it finds you in grace, not in wrath. The chapel listens. The stone absorbs your whispers, and whether heaven hears you do not know, but still you pray, because to stop praying is to admit despair. You rise at last, knees stiff, cloak heavy, heart quieter. The night outside is cold, but the silence within you holds. The whispers in the chapel fade, but they linger too, like smoke that clings to hair, like incense that seeps into skin. You walk back to your chamber, carrying both guilt and grace, uncertain which weighs more. In your world, supper may be casual. Families gather around glowing screens, plates balanced on laps, or sit at polished tables where food arrives in neat courses. In the Middle Ages, supper is ceremony. Every bite carries meaning. Every seat declares rank. Every candle flicker reminds all who is lord and who is servant. The great hall glows with firelight as evening falls. A hearth, large enough to roast an ox, roars at the centre, flames licking the smoke hole above. The smell of wood smoke mingles with roasting meat, garlic, and the faint tang of spilled ale. Torches sputter in sconces along the walls, their smoke weaving with the shadows of banners overhead. Rushes on the floor crackle underfoot, newly laid with herbs, sweet flag, thyme, lavender, masking the odours of sweat and dogs. The high table waits at the far end, raised on a dais. Linen cloth spreads across it, whitened with chalk and painstaking washing. Pewter dishes gleam in the flicker of flame. Goblets of silver stand ready. Benches stretch below for lesser folk. Knights, retainers, visiting merchants. The very layout shouts order high above, you and your kin below, all others. You enter, cloak trailing, and the room shifts. Conversation hushes. Servants bow, dogs slink low. Guests rise briefly in respect. You cross the hall slowly, your boots echoing. At the high table, your chair waits, carved oak, its back taller than any other, its arms broad. To sit here is not comfort alone. It is power made wood. Your family gathers with you. Beside you sits your wife, her veil glimmering with pearls, her gown rustling as she takes her seat. Your children settle nearby, their eyes wide, their manners careful. The steward hovers close, tallying dishes with a glance, ensuring that nothing shames the household tonight. The meal begins with blessing. The chaplain raises his hand, words of Latin tumbling, the sign of the cross cutting through firelight. All bow their heads. Then, with a clap, the servants move. Trenchers of bread arrive first, thick, stale loaves cut in half, hollowed to serve as plates. Onto them are heaped pottage rich with barley, onions, and herbs. Steaming platters of roasted meat follow venison from the hunt. Capons stuffed with garlic, fish glazed with honey. The air grows heavy with scent, thick and almost dizzying. You lift your knife, your personal knife, for no forks grace this hall. You cut meat, spear it with bread, dip it into the pottage. The flavours are strong, sharpened with pepper, cloves, cinnamon, spices carried across seas, dearer than gold. Each taste is a message to your guests. Here is wealth, here is power, here is reach that spans continents. Servants pour wine into your goblet, red and deep, brought from Gascony or beyond. It glows in the firelight as you drink. For peasants, ale weak as broth is supper. For you, foreign wine is common. Each swallow reminds you of your distance from those who kneel outside your gates. The hall hums with life. Minstrels strike chords on harp and lute, their songs praising saints, mocking fools, recounting battles. Dogs snap under benches, squabbling for bones tossed by careless hands. Children of squires chase one another through shadows, their laughter weaving with the music. Servants move like shadows themselves, quiet, efficient, carrying platters, refilling goblets, clearing trenchers heavy with grease. Conversation flows at the high table. Your wife leans close, speaking softly of stores in the buttery, of accounts to be checked. Your steward interrupts once, bowing low to ask how many barrels of ale should be sent to the village for tomorrow's feast day. You answer with a gesture, your authority stitched into every small decision. Your children speak when spoken to. The eldest recites a Latin verse to please the chaplain. The younger stares at the minstrels, eyes wide, fingers twitching as if to pluck the harp himself. Your daughter sits with hands folded, her stitches forgotten for once, her gaze darting curiously to the guests below. From the lower benches, laughter rises louder. Knights argue over tales of hunting. Merchants boast of journeys and wares. Squires tease one another until their voices break with mirth. The high table remains measured, polite, but the hall itself roars with noise. This is supper not as quiet intimacy but as theatre, display of order, of wealth, of family bound together beneath the eyes of all. Between courses, servants carry in spiced wine, steaming in pitchers and trenchers are replaced. New dishes arrive, pies stuffed with pigeon and rabbit, custards sweetened with honey, fruits preserved in syrup. The richness grows almost heavy, overwhelming, yet to serve less would be shame. To feast is to prove strength. Still, you notice the waste. Bones tossed aside, bread trenchers soaked with grease left for dogs. Servants gather scraps to send to the poor at the gate, but much will rot in refuse pits. You sip wine, wondering for a moment what such waste would mean to the peasants in their huts, boiling thin stew. The thought lingers, then fades, swallowed by the laughter and music. At last, the final course arrives, sugared almonds, wafers crisp with honey, spiced hippocras poured warm into cups. The air is thick with smoke, bellies heavy, voices louder with drink. A fool tumbles into the hall, jingling bells on his cap, mocking nobles and knights alike, until the crowd roars with laughter. For a time, rank dissolves in mirth. Then the steward signals the close. The chaplain rises once more, blessing the household, the food, the night. Guests bow. Servants begin clearing, the rush of their work almost invisible beneath the noise. You push back your chair, rising slowly. The hall stills again. Your family follows. Together you leave the dais, passing through rows of guests who bow low. In your chamber later, the scents of the hall cling still, smoke, meat, spice, wine. Your stomach is full, your body heavy with warmth, but your mind hums. Supper has been more than a meal. It has been affirmation, declaration, ritual. To feed is to rule is to feed. As the fire in your hearth burns low, you lie back on the straw-stuffed mattress, closing your eyes. The echoes of the hall fade, laughter, music clatter, leaving only the crackle of dying embers. Supper is over, but its meaning lingers woven into the fabric of the household like the smoke that clings to stone. In your world, letters travel in an instant. A message typed on glass blinks across continents in a heartbeat. You can send apologies, threats, or promises and receive replies before your coffee is even cold. In the Middle Ages, letters were a labour of love. They are ceremony, risk, performance, and gamble. They must be written by hand, copied onto parchment, sealed with wax, and carried by men on horseback who may be robbed, delayed, or killed. Each word you choose weighs heavily, for it may live long after your voice falls silent. The chamber where letters are made is quieter than the hall, but no less critical. A long wooden table stretches beneath a window of horn panes, the light pale and uncertain. On the table lie sheets of parchment scraped smooth from animal skin, still faintly smelling of lime and flesh. An inkhorn waits, dark and glistening, beside goose-feather quills sharpened to fine points. A small knife lies ready, not for defence, but to trim quills, scrape errors, cut seals. Your clerk stands at attention, robes plain, fingers stained with ink. He bows as you enter, waiting for your command. Today the letter must go to the king himself. Matters of land dispute, of taxes owed, of loyalty declared. Such letters are not casual notes. They are records that may be read aloud before councils, stored in archives, studied by men centuries later. A careless phrase can ruin. A sharp phrase can provoke. A clever phrase can save. You sit. The chair is hard. The the table scarred by years of blades and pens. The clerk dips the quill, waits for your words. You speak slowly, carefully, as he scratches them down. To our most noble and dread sovereign lord, we send greeting. The formula is standard, required. What follows must balance deference and strength. Too humble, and you appear weak. Too bold, and you appear threatening. The scratching of the quill fills the chamber, steady as breathing. You dictate your loyalty first, your service, your obedience, your prayers for his health and reign. Then you raise the matter, a border dispute with a neighbouring lord, fields claimed on both sides, rents contested, peasants confused. You state your right, tracing lineage, charters, the ancient privileges of your house. You offer resolution, but remind him of your service in battle, of your levies raised, of the taxes already paid. Each word is a blade sharpened, each line a shield lifted. As the clerk writes, servants move quietly in and out. One brings sand to scatter over the ink so it dries without smearing. Another stirs the brazier, adding warmth to keep fingers supple in the chill. You barely notice them. Your mind is on the king, his eyes narrowing as he reads, his counsellors whispering over your words, his hand pausing as it hovers over the reply. When the letter is finished, the clerk reads it aloud. His voice is steady, but you listen for the cadence. Does it sound submissive? Too proud? Does it carry the right balance of loyalty and insistence? You nod, adjust one phrase, delete another. The knife scrapes the parchment, removing the error, leaving a faint scar on the skin. A correction, like all corrections, visible but unavoidable. Satisfied, you take the seal. Red wax melts in a small spoon over the flame, dripping onto the folded parchment. The smell is sharp, acrid, filling the chamber. You press your ring into the wax, the crest of your house imprinting authority into the soft pool. When it hardens, the letter is more than words. It is your voice, your body, your presence, carried into another place. Now the letter must travel. A trusted messenger is summoned, an armed man, swift on horseback, loyal enough to risk ambush on the road. He kneels as you hand him the sealed parchment. You look into his eyes and see the weight of his task. Should he lose it? Should it be stolen or opened? The consequences ripple across your household. He tucks it into his pouch, fastens it close, bows and departs. Hooves clatter in the courtyard, then fade into the distance. Your words ride with him, vulnerable as any soldier. The chamber grows still. You remain seated, fingers on the table's edge, feeling the grain of the wood under your skin. You know it may be weeks before a reply returns. Weeks of waiting, of imagining how your words will be received, of fearing that silence means displeasure. In your world, silence is rare. Here, silence is heavy, dangerous, sometimes fatal. You recall other letters, some bearing good news, grants of land, summons to court, thanks for service. Others darker, demands for more taxes, reprimands for delays, accusations of disloyalty. A letter can summon you to honour or summon you to ruin. Outside the chamber, life in the castle continues. Children laugh in the yard, peasants bring grain to the gate, dogs bark, servants carry baskets of rushes. Yet inside, the world has narrowed to one sheet of parchment riding away under a stranger's cloak. Later, as evening falls, you dine again in the hall. Conversation swirls, music plays, but your thoughts drift to the messenger galloping through the night. Is he safe? Does he stop to rest? Will he be waylaid by bandits, his pouch cut from his side? You picture the letter torn open in some forest, its words mocked by thieves who cannot even read them. You shudder, sip wine, force yourself back to the feast. Weeks later, the reply comes, a horn at the gate, a weary rider, a pouch, dust-stained. The steward bows as he delivers the sealed parchment. Your hands tremble slightly as you break the wax, the king's crest cracking under your thumb. The words inside are brief, praise for loyalty, promise of investigation, reminder of further duties. They say little, but the silence between them says much. For now you are secure. For now you are seen. You fold the letter carefully, hand it to your clerk for storage in the chest of documents, one among dozens, yet each one a fragment of your life, a thread in the tapestry of history. You sit back, exhaling slowly. In your century, messages vanish with a swipe, lost to servers and screens. Here every word lingers, carved into parchment, sealed into wax, carried across miles, preserved for centuries. Your voice will outlast you, bound in archives, waiting for eyes not yet born. And that is the burden of every letter, not only to speak for today, but to echo tomorrow. In your world, war might appear on screens, breaking news, headlines, distant footage. You can switch it off, return to comfort, walk to the kitchen for food without thinking. In the Middle Ages, war arrives at your gate, and you cannot turn away. A siege is not an image, but a prison. It swallows whole households, whole villages, and reduces them to hunger, disease, and silence. The warning comes first from the watchtower. A horn blares low and long, carrying across the valley. Men rush to the battlements, squinting through the haze. Dust rises on the horizon. A smear of movement too broad for a caravan, too disciplined for mere travellers. The enemy has come. Inside the castle, panic stiffens into purpose. The gates slam shut, chains creaking as the portcullis crashes down. Guards shove beams into place behind doors, their muscles trembling with urgency. Servants herd livestock into courtyards, pigs squealing, geese flapping in terror. Every beast that can be eaten must be inside before the circle closes. Buckets of water are hauled from wells, barrels rolled into storerooms, grain sacks piled high in towers. Children cry as their mothers drag them into chambers. Dogs bark until voices shout them quiet. The air thickens with fear and smoke. You stand on the wall and watch them come. Banners flutter, lances glint. The shuffle of hundreds of boots pounds like thunder. They bring wagons laden with timber, ropes, iron. Already, carpenters hammer together frames for siege engines. You smell pitch, wood smoke, sweat carried on the wind. The enemy does not hide. Their confidence is open, brutal. They mean to starve you, break you, humiliate you. The first day's a noise. Arrows whistle from their lines, clattering against shields and walls. Stones hurled from slings batter towers, cracking mortar. Men shout, horns blare, drums pound. At night, fires flicker in their camp, a sea of sparks surrounding you. Inside, the halls echo with commands. Armor clinks as men patrol. Servants rush with buckets. Smiths hammer arrowheads by the dozen. The kitchen fires roar, cooking while supplies still permit. You eat heartily at first, bread fresh, meat roasted, wine poured into cups, but already you know it cannot last. A siege is a contest of bellies more than blades. The stores, however vast, will shrink day by day. The enemy builds. Towers rise, frames groan, ropes stretch. You watch as carpenters construct rams, great beams tipped with iron. You hear the creak of wheels as they drag them forward, shielded by wooden roofs wet with hides to resist fire. You know that when those rams reach your gates, the oak will shudder, splinter, crack. Your archers shoot, shafts darkening the sky. Some strike, some fall. Men scream, tumble, crawl. Yet for each body another steps forward. Siege is patience, not passion. You understand this, but your stomach knots as you count arrows, as you watch quivers empty. Inside, life bends to the siege. Windows are shuttered, candles rationed, rushers swept less often. Servants carry slop from chambers more quickly, fearful of disease. Children grow pale in the dimness, their laughter rare, their cries sharper. Your wife manages stores, tallying bread loaves, measuring ale casks, locking storerooms. Her keys jingle more often now, each one a promise of survival or famine. Days stretch into weeks. The kitchens grow quieter. No more fresh meat, Animals are slaughtered one by one. Their hides salted, their bones boiled for broth. Bread turns coarse, then thin, then scarce. Wine is watered. Ale grows sour. Men chew leather, softened in broth, pretending it is food. You see cheeks hollow, eyes sink. The dogs vanish, eaten in silence, shame hidden behind necessity. The enemy presses closer. Ladders scrape stone as men climb, shields flashing. Boiling water hisses as you pour it down. Arrows slam into helmets. Stones are hurled from the battlements. Screams rise, then fade. As bodies fall back into the mud, the moat darkens with blood. Still they come. Night is worst. Fires burn outside. The glow seeping under shutters. Drums pound at irregular hours, keeping you restless, stealing sleep. Sometimes a sudden crash shakes the wall. A test of rams, a probe of weakness. You wake with your heart hammering, sword in hand, cloak half fastened, breath sharp with fear. Inside, tempers fray, servants quarrel, knights mutter of treachery, peasants trapped within the walls weep for their huts left outside. Disease creeps in with hunger, fevers rise, bellies cramp, rashes spread. The chapel fills with prayers, candles burning low, voices trembling with despair. One morning, you climb the wall again. The enemy has raised a tower higher than your own. From its top, archers shoot down into the yard, their shafts falling like rain. You see a boy struck, a servant carrying water. He falls silently, eyes wide, the jug shattering. You bite back a cry, clench your fists. Rage is useless, only endurance matters. The battering ram begins its song. Thud, 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 thud. Each strike rattles through stone, through bone, through heart. Dust falls from the beams above you. Mortar crumbles, cracks spider through the gate. Men brace behind it, shoulders pressed to wood, their groans joining the thud like a dirge. Buckets of pitch are hauled, torches thrust into it. Fire dropped onto the ram. Flames roar, smoke rises, but still it pounds. Again, again. Your men fight bravely. They hurl stones, shoot arrows, thrust pikes into faces. They burn ladders, topple siege towers, scream oaths into the night. But you feel time grinding against you, wearing you down. A siege is not only fought in blood, but in hunger, in silence, in the slow erosion of will. One evening the steward approaches. His face is grey, his voice hollow. Bread is gone, save for a few loaves. Alice is nearly spent. He suggests boiling belts, bones, leather. He whispers of surrender. You stare at him, fury rising, but you see truth in his eyes. Your people are starving. Children cough, knights stagger, women faint. To hold longer may mean nothing left to hold at all. You retreat to your chamber. The rushes stink. The fire has gone cold. The air is heavy with smoke and sickness. You kneel at the bed's edge, hands clenched, whispering prayers that feel brittle in the silence. You ask for strength, for deliverance, for mercy. You ask for victory, though part of you knows that survival itself may be victory enough. The next day the horns sound again. The enemy prepares a final assault. Ladders raised, towers pushed, rams pounding. The walls tremble, stones groan. You stand upon the battlements, sword in hand, cloak snapping in the wind. Your people look to you, their lord, their shield, their anchor. You raise your voice, hoarse but strong, promising that the walls will hold, that God is with you. And for a moment as they roar in reply, you almost believe it. In your world, justice is often hidden. Courtrooms are closed spaces where proceedings are conducted in formal silence, and punishments are carried out behind closed walls. You may read of them in headlines, hear of them in statistics, but rarely see them face to face. In the Middle Ages, justice was public, raw, and merciless. It is a theatre staged in the square, where punishment is a lesson, spectacle, and warning all at once. The day begins with the tolling of bells, not the alarm of fire, not the call to mass, but the summons of judgment. Villagers file toward the market square, feet crunching on frost or mud depending on the season. Mothers carry children, fathers shoulder tools, youths dart ahead with restless curiosity. Justice is not entertainment exactly, but it is a story everyone must watch unfold. From your chamber window you see the scaffold being raised, timber beams hammered together, planks nailed across, ropes coiled. The carpenters work swiftly, their faces grim. They have done this before. Each blow of the hammer echoes through the village like a drumbeat of inevitability. You dress for the occasion, your garments chosen not for comfort but for authority. A tunic of deep wool, embroidered with your crest, cloak lined with fur, belt heavy with a sword you will not draw. Your presence must remind all who look that the law is not merely an idea but a body yours. The procession begins from the castle. You ride at the head, flanked by guards bearing halberds, their armour glinting. Behind comes the bailiff, holding the scroll of judgment. Then, at last, the condemned, shuffling, bound, their faces pale in the morning light. Some cry out, some weep silently, some walk with eerie calm. The crowd parts as you pass, bowing, muttering prayers, crossing themselves. At the scaffold, the bailiff reads the charges. His voice carries over the square, listing crimes one by one: theft of grain, murder in a tavern, desertion from duty, rebellion against the Lord's command. Each crime is met with murmurs from the crowd, some sympathetic, some harsh. Justice here is not abstract. It is the face of a neighbour, the body of a stranger, the story of someone known. You step forward. All eyes rise to you. You feel the weight of their gaze, fearful, expectant, resentful. You declare that justice must be done, that the law is clear, that mercy has its place, but order must endure. Your words are formal, shaped more by tradition than by choice. Yet your voice trembles slightly, for you know what comes next. The executioner mounts the scaffold. He wears a hood, though his identity is no secret. His axe is bright from sharpening, his rope freshly coiled. He bows briefly to you, then turns to his work. The first condemned is led forward. Chinies buckle, hands tremble, but the guards hold firm. The crowd hushes. A prayer is muttered by the chaplain, a final chance for the soul. Then the rope is set, or the block prepared. The executioner lifts his weapon. The sound is never forgotten. The crack of a neck as the rope jerks taut, the thud of an axe splitting wood and flesh, the rush of air as a head rolls, gasps ripple through the crowd, then silence, then murmurs again. Children hide their faces against mothers' skirts, though some peek through fingers with morbid curiosity. One by one the sentences are carried out. The thief, the murderer, the deserter, each punishment tailored to the crime. Hanging, beheading, sometimes mutilation, sometimes branding. The crowd watches, not with glee, but with the sober attention of those reminded of their own fragility. They know today it is another, tomorrow it could be them. When it ends, the scaffold is stained, the air thick with iron and smoke. The bodies are taken down, some to be buried, others left on display as warnings. The crowd disperses slowly, murmuring prayers, trading whispers, carrying the memory back to their huts. The square is quieter, yet the echo of judgment lingers like smoke in rafters. You remain a moment longer. Your cloak flaps in the cold wind. Your hands clench the reins of your horse. Knuckles white. You tell yourself this is necessary. Without justice, there is chaos. Without punishment, there is defiance. You rule by law, and law demands spectacle. Yet inside, unease coils. For you have seen mercy denied, men executed for hunger more than malice, women punished for desperation. You know justice is not always fair. It is power made visible. Back at the castle, the steward praises the day's order. He notes that rents will be paid more swiftly now, that villagers will remember the cost of theft, The chaplain assures you that souls have been commended to God, that sin has been purged. The guards boast of discipline maintained. Only in your own chest does doubt stir. That night, the hall is quieter. Supper is taken, wine is poured, but laughter is strained. Servants whisper of the executions, their voices sharp with fear. Your children ask questions you cannot fully answer. Why must men die? Could there not have been mercy? You speak of law, of order, of God's will, but your words feel brittle. When the torches burn low, you walk alone to the chapel. You kneel, whispering prayers for the souls of the condemned, for your own soul, for the weight of justice you cannot set down. The candles flicker, the stone presses cold against your knees. You close your eyes and see again the scaffold, the axe, the rope. Justice has been served, but its echo will follow you into dreams. In your world, illness can be met with sterile clinics, humming machines, pills measured to the milligram. A fever means an appointment, a diagnosis, a prescription. In the Middle Ages, illness is mystery and terror. It is punishment from God, imbalance of humours, the gaze of the evil eye. Physicians and priests argue over causes, astrologers consult the stars, and herbalists whisper of charms. To be noble does not shield you. Within these thick walls, sickness stalks as silently as in any peasant's hut. It begins with a shiver. You lie in your chamber, woolen blankets heavy, the straw mattress rustling beneath you. The fire burns low, yet sweat beads on your brow. Your throat aches, your head throbs, your breath comes shallow. Servants whisper outside the door. They have seen illness before. They know how quickly it can bloom into death. At dawn the physician is summoned. He arrives in a long robe, its hem damp with mud from the yard, a book of Galen clutched in one hand, a leather satchel in the other. He bows, his face solemn, eyes sharp with calculation. He approaches your bed and lays cool fingers on your wrist, counting your pulse. He studies your tongue, your eyes, your skin. He sniffs the air near your body, as though scent itself might reveal disease. An imbalance of humours, he declares. Black bile, yellow bile, blood, phlegm, the four rivers of the body, their harmony the key to health. When one rises above the others, sickness blooms. He prescribes balance. The servants move quickly. A basin is brought, gleaming in the firelight. The physician readies a lancet. Its blade thin and cruel. Your arm is bound. The vein tapped. Blood runs into the basin, dark and warm, the sound shocking in the silence. The physician nods, satisfied, as though the sickness itself drains with the blood. Your head swims with weakness, but the ritual is not yet done. Herbs are prepared. A mortar grinds in the corner, pestle crushing dried leaves and seeds, rosemary, sage, fennel, perhaps more exotic things, cinnamon, nutmeg, saffron. If the apothecary's stores are rich, the mixture is steeped in hot wine, its steam pungent, almost choking. You drink, wincing at the bitterness, throat burning as it slides down. Servants hold your shoulders until you lie back again. The physician consults his charts. He has drawn them from the stars, from the positions of planets and moons. Perhaps your illness comes because Saturn is in ascendance, or because Mars casts its shadow. He speaks of constellations as though they are veins within your body. You listen through fever, unsure whether his words heal or haunt. The priest arrives too, bearing a vial of holy water, a relic wrapped in linen, the sign of the cross. He prays over you, voice trembling with urgency. He reminds you that illness may be punishment, that confession is wise, that death is never far. You whisper sins into his ear, your breath hot, your voice weak. He absolves you, anoints your forehead with oil, presses the relic against your hand. Between priest and physician, body and soul are both treated, though neither can promise cure. As days pass, the sickness ebbs and flows. Some mornings you wake lighter, appetite returning, hope flickering. Other nights you shake with chills, sweat soaking the sheets, servants wringing them out and laying fresh linen beneath you. The chamber reeks of vinegar, poured on floors to purify the air, mingled with herbs hung from beams, sage and rue crackling in the brazier, rats scuttle in corners, emboldened by the food scraps, reminders of how disease never respects stone walls. Your wife visits, her veil pulled close, worry shadowing her face. She holds your hand, whispers prayers, orders servants to fetch broth to stoke the fire higher. Your children peek in timidly, eyes wide, not allowed too close. They have seen sickness take others before. They fear it may take you too. Meanwhile, the household falters. Without your presence, decisions are delayed, disputes linger, servants grow restless. The steward consults with your lady, but all wait for your voice. A noble ill is a household trembling. Rumours spread to the village that you are dying, that the castle will fall, that the land will change hands. Fear feeds faster than fever. One night your body weakens so far that breath itself feels like labour. The physician mutters urgently, orders more bloodletting, more herbs, more prayers. You are too tired to protest. A leech is pressed against your skin, its body swelling as it drinks. You drift, half conscious, the firelight blurring, the chant of prayers merging with the crackle of wood. But dawn comes, and with it, a shift. The fever breaks. Sweat pours from you, soaking sheets, leaving you shivering but clearer. The physician nods gravely, pronouncing that the balance is restored, that the crisis has passed. The priest offers thanks to God, the relic pressed once more into your hand. Servants smile, their eyes bright with relief. Recovery is slow. Broths of barley and chicken are fed to you in sips. Herbs soothe your throat, oils rubbed into your skin to strengthen. You walk unsteadily at first, leaning on a servant's arm, pacing the corridor, feeling the chill of stone underfoot again. Each step is a victory. Each breath feels like a gift. When at last you return to the hall, the household greets you with cheers. Minstrels strike chords, servants bow, your children smile shyly. You sit at the high table once more, a cup of watered wine in your hand, and look out over the hall that nearly slipped away from you. Illness has left its mark. You feel weaker, older, your body not as steady as before, but you also feel sharper, more aware of the thin veil between life and death. Nobility may bring castles, feasts, hunts, and power, but sickness reminds all lord and peasant alike that the body is clay, fragile, fleeting. At night, lying once more beneath your cloak, you think of the fever's heat, the lancet's sting, the priest's trembling voice. You think of how close you came to silence, and you breathe deeper, slower, letting the cool air of survival fill your chest. In your world, service often hides behind technology. Lights switch on at the press of a button. Meals arrive through delivery apps and machines scrub and wash. You might never meet the hands that grew your food or stitched your clothes. In the Middle Ages, the servants were always visible, always near, always present. They move like shadows along the corridors, silent yet essential. Without them, the castle would fall into ruin in a day. You wake before dawn, and they are already there. A boy slips into your chamber, careful not to wake you fully, and stirs the embers of the hearth. He adds kindling, blows gently until the fire blooms again. Another sets a basin on the table, filling it with water hauled from the well in the yard. Their footsteps are soft, practiced, almost invisible. By the time you open your eyes, the room is warm, water is ready, clothes are laid out. It feels effortless, but only because their effort is endless. The castle thrums with them. In the kitchens, long before the bell tolls, cooks and scullions bend over pots and spits. The smell of wood smoke and boiling broth fills the air. Knives chop onions, pestles grind herbs. Dough is kneaded with red raw fists. Fires roar hot, sweat beads on brows. Hands blister from lifting cauldrons heavy as shields. Servants taste, stir, adjust, turning simple grain into bread, tough meat into pottage. In the stables, grooms move among restless horses. Hooves clatter, manes are combed, saddles rubbed with oil until the leather gleams. Dung is shoveled, water carried bucket by bucket. These men speak in low tones, soothing the beasts, each horse's quirks memorized, which bites, which kicks, which will not bear the weight of armor without coaxing. The laundresses work near the stream. They beat linen against stones, their arms red with cold, their backs aching. Soap made from lye burns their hands, yet they scrub until the cloth is white enough for noble skin. They hang sheets in the wind, praying the weather stays fair. A sudden storm can ruin days of labour. Inside the hall, pages scurry. They fetch cups, deliver messages, hold dogs on leashes, carry trays to the dais. They learn by watching, absorbing the manners of their lords. One day they may become squires, one day knights, but for now their world is errands and blows if they falter. Their voices crack with youth, their faces flush with fear, but they move swiftly, eager to please. The chambermaids tend to your family. They brush hair, lace gowns, fetch girdles heavy with keys. They prepare childbirth beds with herbs meant to ward off death, hold infants as mothers rest, sing lullabies in cracked voices. They see the nobility at their most vulnerable, naked, sweating, sick or weeping, yet they speak little, for to repeat what they see would mean dismissal, or worse, their silence is a currency. You notice them more when they falter. A cup spilled, a cloak torn, a loaf burnt. Then voices rise, punishments fall, whippings, docked wages. Dismissal, the work of months, can be undone in a moment. Fear sharpens their silence. They bow lower, speak less, work harder. And yet, the servants know everything. They move through halls unseen, their ears catching whispers, their eyes glimpsing letters left half hidden. They know which knight drank too much, which lady slipped away, which steward skimmed coins from rents. They know which lord argued with his wife, which child wept at night, which priest faltered in prayer. They carry secrets like water in unseen buckets, spilling none, yet always heavy with weight. At night, when the hall falls quiet, they continue. Floors are swept, rushes changed, dogs fed, torches trimmed. You may sleep, but they do not rest fully. Their world is built from scraps of hours. They collapse onto straw pallets in the lofts, beside kitchens, under stairs. Their beds smell of smoke and sweat. Their bodies ache, yet they wake again before you stir. For nobles, servants are both invisible and indispensable. You rarely thank them. Gratitude is not custom. You command, they obey. Yet you know, if you pause long enough to admit it, that your life is stitched together by their hands. The warmth of your cloak, the sharpness of your sword, the smoothness of your linen, the fullness of your plate, all of it is their doing. Sometimes you catch a glance, a maid's eyes as she pours wine, tired but steady, a groom's hand on a horse, gentle, skilled, a cook's face red in the firelight, lips murmuring a hymn as he stirs. For a moment you see them not as shadows but as people, as lives beating quietly around your own. Then the moment fades, swallowed by the rhythm of command. Yet, even silence leaves marks. Chronicles may never name them, but without them there would be no chronicles, no noble houses, no castles standing. Theirs is a labour erased by time, but you feel it daily in every comfort you take for granted. One evening you pass through the corridor and hear laughter. It rises from the servants' hall, a smaller chamber below the kitchens. You pause, listening. The sound is rough, unpolished, but rich. They sit around a low fire, bowls of thin stew in hand, bread crusts soaking in broth. They share stories, sing songs, tease one another. Their joy is humble, fleeting, but real. You stand in the shadows, unseen, feeling for a moment like a stranger in your own castle. Then you turn, your cloak swishing, your boots heavy, leaving them their moment. The silent servants will rise before dawn again, move unseen again, carry the household again. Their silence is not emptiness. It is the fabric of your life woven without words, strong enough to hold the weight of a world. In your world, winter is softened. Central heating hums behind walls. Electric lamps scatter darkness. Supermarkets overflow with food trucked from far away. In the Middle Ages, winter is enemy and judge. It seeps into stone walls, gnaws at flesh, and tests every store gathered in summer's heat. For peasants, it can mean starvation. For nobles, though safer, it still brings hardship that no wealth can entirely erase. The first frost cracks the fields. From the tower window you watch the land fade from green to grey. Smoke curls from village chimneys, thin and desperate. Inside the castle, servants scramble to prepare, hanging extra tapestries on walls, stuffing cracks and shutters with rags, laying new rushes on floors. The air thickens with wood smoke, and still the cold creeps in. Your chamber grows hostile. The hearth blazes, logs stacked high, yet your breath still rises in clouds. The bed is heaped with blankets, furs heavy on your chest, but the straw beneath crackles with frost. You wake in the night with teeth chattering, limbs stiff, nose numb, rats scuttle for warmth. Their scratching louder in the silence. Candles sputter, wicks too cold to catch. Darkness presses close, heavier than the stone itself. Servants bring warming pans, brass filled with coals, slipped between sheets before you lie down. For a few moments warmth spreads, but it fades quickly, leaving the bed colder than before. Hot spiced wine is poured into your cup. The steam fogs your vision, but its comfort is fleeting. Your fingers ache as you lift it, joints stiffened by the cold. Gloves are worn indoors, hoods pulled tight, cloaks clasped even in chambers. In the great hall, the hearth is a beacon. Flames roar, sparks leaping toward rafters blackened with centuries of smoke. Nobles and servants cluster close, hands stretched, cheeks reddened by heat. Behind them, shadows shiver, cold pooling in corners where the fire cannot reach. Dogs press close to benches, children curl against mothers, all chasing warmth that flickers and wavers. Food shifts too. Fresh fruits and greens vanish. Meat is salted, fish dried, grain rationed carefully. Suppers grow heavier with pottage, thick stews of barley and root vegetables, flavoured with whatever herbs were dried in autumn. Bread is darker, coarser, harder. Cheese hardens too, scraped thin. The luxury of venison or swan is rare, saved for feasts or holy days. Even nobles feel hunger's nudge, though their hunger is mild compared to peasants boiling bark and nettles in huts below. Winter reshapes the castle's rhythm. Work slows, fields lie fallow, hunting grows dangerous in deep snow. Instead, time bends inward. Women sew by candlelight, their needles flashing in gloom. Men polish armour, mend tack, carve small figures of wood to pass the hours. Minstrels tell tales, their voices rising above crackling logs. Children play at the hearth, chasing dogs, tossing bones. The air is thick with smoke and laughter, but beneath it lies unease, the sense that survival is never guaranteed. Storms come, snow piles against walls, drifts rising high enough to bury doors. Wind howls through every crack, rattling shutters, whistling down chimneys. The castle moans with it, stones creaking, timbers groaning. You wake to find frost etched on the inside of the window, delicate flowers of ice blooming across horn panes. Your breath clouds the room. Your blankets are stiff with cold. Servants hurry to clear snow from walkways, to keep wells from freezing, to ensure livestock does not perish in stalls. Illness thrives. Fevers spread in close quarters. Coughs echo through halls. Bodies weakened by poor diet and damp. The physician moves constantly, pressing leeches, brewing potions of garlic and vinegar, whispering prayers over the sick. Some recover. Others fade quietly, carried out under cover of night, to frozen earth. Death does not wait for spring. Religion swells in this darkness. Candles burn longer in the chapel. Prayers rise more urgently. Saints are invoked to guard against frost, famine, plague. Pilgrims sometimes arrive despite the snow, seeking relics or alms, their bodies wasted, their eyes hollow. They kneel in the chapel, steaming from melted snow. whispering gratitude for shelter even as hunger eats them alive. You pace the hall, cloak tight, boots crunching on frozen rushes. You listen to the wind scream through cracks, to servants' hushed voices about dwindling stores. You know your family will not starve. Not truly, but you also know that hunger breeds unrest. Peasants who pay rents resent the sight of noble feasts. Servants with aching bellies grow short-tempered. Fear of rebellion lingers, sharpened by winter's edge. Still, moments of warmth bloom. One night, the hall glows with feast. A boar hunted with risk and triumph. Roasts on a spit. Spices scent the air. Music swells. Laughter rises louder than the storm. Guests gather close, cheeks flushed, goblets lifted. For a few hours, winter loosens its grip. Joy spreads like fire through the hall, and you remember why feasts matter. They are not only indulgence but survival for the spirit. In quieter nights, you sit by the hearth with family. Children huddle close, listening as minstrels tell tales of Arthur, of Roland, of saints who braved frost and famine. Their eyes widen, their faces glow in firelight. You place an arm around your youngest, feeling their small warmth, fragile but fierce. In that moment, winter seems less cruel. But then dawn comes again, pale and weak, and the cold presses back. The endless night stretches on, unbroken by warmth, unyielding. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. Time itself seems frozen, waiting for spring's thaw. At last, the change comes subtly. A trickle of water in a once frozen stream, birds calling in bare branches, snow retreating from the edges of walls, dripping into mud. The air still chills, but the sun lingers longer. Servants smile more easily. Children laugh louder. Dogs bark with new vigor. Life stirs again. Winter has not conquered. You have endured, yet the memory lingers. The frost in your breath, the ache in your bones, the silence of endless night. You know it will return, as certain as the turning of the year, and you know that when it does, you will face it again, with fire, with faith, with stubborn endurance. For in the Middle Ages, winter is not a season, it is a battle, and survival itself is victory. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? In your world, inheritance can be planned on paper, wills notarized, accounts tallied, assets divided with signatures and stamps. In the Middle Ages, inheritance was a matter of bloodline. It is argued, not in offices but in halls. It is secured not only by words but by oaths, swords, and sometimes war. A noble death does not close a chapter, it opens a contest. The summons goes out across your lands. Messengers ride to distant manors, carrying wax-sealed commands. Kinsmen gather, vassals assemble, councillors sharpen arguments as surely as blades. The hall must host them all, long benches laid with linen, rushes changed, torches set high to burn through the night. The air grows thick even before the meeting begins, heavy with expectation. You sit at the head of the dais, cloak draped over your shoulders, your signet ring pressing its weight into your finger. Around you cluster your kin, sons grown and half-grown, daughters married into other houses, nephews with eager eyes, cousins with careful smiles. Each carries claims, spoken or unspoken. Each weighs loyalty against ambition. The council begins with ritual. The chaplain lifts his voice, blessing the gathering, invoking God's witness. Latin syllables echo through rafters blackened by smoke. All bow their heads, some sincerely, some only for show. Then the steward unrolls the parchment. Accounts of lands, lists of tenants, records of obligations. The numbers rattle like dice thrown on a table, each one representing grain, coin, muscle. Disputes flare quickly. A cousin insists his mother's dowry gave him claim to certain fields. A nephew cites a half-forgotten charter naming him heir if others fall. Voices rise, fists clench. Servants hover nervously, refilling cups, sweeping rushes, trying to fade into shadow as the air heats with rivalry. Your eldest son speaks with confidence. His claim is clear. He is the firstborn, trained since boyhood to inherit. He recites his lineage, as if it were scripture, his voice firm, his hand steady on the hilt of his sword. Yet others mutter, "He is young, untested, reckless." Whispers ripple like wind through grass. Should lands be divided? Should another hold guardianship? Until he proves himself. The law is both clear and blurred. Primogeniture grants the eldest the lion's share, but dowries, charters, and royal favours twist the path. Kings meddle, granting lands to favourites, overturning centuries with a stroke of a pen. Marriage alliances complicate further. What was given in union, what returns at death, what belongs to which bloodline? The chaplain tries to calm voices, reminding all of duty, of unity, of the peril of discord. But the past looms heavy. You recall tales of families torn apart, brothers raising swords against brothers, castles burned by kin. You remember the whispers of civil wars sparked not by invaders but by inheritance. As the night deepens, the council grows harsher. Wine flows, tongues loosen, accusations sharpen. One cousin slams his fist, declaring that promises were made. Another sneers, pointing to documents that favour him. A nephew leans close to you, whispering flatteries, hoping for your nod. The air stinks of sweat, smoke, and ambition. You listen, silent, weighing each word. You feel the burden press heavier with each claim. This is not only about land or coin, it is about the survival of your name, the strength of your house. Division means weakness. Weakness invites rivals. Rivals bring war. At last you rise. The hall falls silent. Your cloak brushes the rushes. Your ring glints in torchlight. You declare your will. Lands will pass as tradition demands to your eldest. Others will receive smaller portions. Manors here, incomes there. Daughters' dowries are confirmed. Nephews granted minor offices. Cousins assured of your favour. It is compromise and command in one breath. Murmurs ripple. Some nod, some scowl, some hide disappointment behind bowed heads. But your word is final. For now the council bends. For now blood does not spill. When the meeting ends, the hall empties slowly. Guests shuffle out, their faces tight with thought. Some will plot still, whispering in corridors, seeking alliances in shadow. Others will bow in truth, their loyalty steady. The fire burns low, smoke curling to the rafters, as the echoes of argument linger. Later, alone in your chamber, you feel the weight settle heavier. You know that once you are gone, the council will meet again, perhaps with less restraint. Your heirs will fight to keep what you give. Your kin may test their strength. Your enemies will sniff at the gates. Succession is never final. It is a seed of conflict planted with every generation. You sit at the window, staring into the dark. The village below lies quiet, huts glowing faintly from their fires. They do not know of parchments and claims, of charters and dowries. Their inheritance is simpler: a plough, a field, a flock. Their quarrels end with bruises, not armies. You envy them for a moment, then let the thought fade. You are noble. Your inheritance is more than land. It is power, fragile and fierce. The fire dies. The chamber chills. You close your eyes, hearing again the voices raised, the fists pounding, the parchments rattling. Bloodlines bind, but they also burn. The council is over, but its shadow stretches into tomorrow. And you know when your time comes, when breath leaves your body, your heirs will gather as you did tonight. They will argue, they will fight, they will carve the future from your bones. It is the way of things. It is the curse of bloodlines. In your world, a sunset can be paused, photographed, shared in an instant. People send each other skies, tagged and filtered, images frozen forever. In the Middle Ages, there is no pause, no capture. The sun slips down, light shifts, colours vanish, and memory is the only record. To watch a sunset, then, is to feel time itself moving, to sense how small you are against the wheel of heaven. For a noble, that sunset means more than beauty. It means possession, duty, and the ache of knowing all of it is temporary. You climb the stair to the tower slowly. Each step is carved deep by centuries of feet, spiraling upward, curving tighter as you ascend. The stone presses cool beneath your hand, rough, worn smooth in patches where fingers have always reached for balance. The higher you climb, the more the air thins and sharpens, smelling of damp mortar, pigeon feathers, and the faint tang of wood smoke drifting up from the hall. When you emerge onto the battlements, the wind strikes you full in the face. Your cloak whips against your legs, tugged outward by the breeze. You pause, steady yourself, and then look. The land unfurls like a tapestry. Fields stretch in strips, pale stubble, glinting gold, furrows carved in long, neat lines. Villagers huddle together, each roof thatched, each hut crouched low against the coming cold. Smoke threads rise from chimneys, twisting into the air like soft banners. Beyond, woods darken, their edges frayed by fields, their depths alive with unseen beasts. Roads snake across the hills, cart tracks etched into mud, leading to manors and towns beyond sight. A river catches the light, a silver blade cutting through the valley. On its banks, peasants rinse clothes in cold water, their hands red and raw. Children splashing despite the chill. Oxen plod homeward along the bank, hooves sinking deep in the mud. You hear distant voices, laughter, song, the clatter of buckets. From this height, the sounds are faint but unmistakable, threads of life woven into the quiet. The castle itself hums beneath you. Hooves ring in the yard as grooms lead horses to stalls. A smith hammers iron, each strike ringing clear, sparks scattering into the dusk. Dogs bark, snapping at one another until a boy shouts them still. From the kitchen chimney pours a thick plume of smoke, heavy with the smell of roasting meat, garlic and wood. The chapel bell tolls vespers, its iron voice rolling across fields, answered by the fainter bells of distant churches. The sunset is vast tonight. Clouds catch fire, edges rimmed in scarlet and orange. The sky melts from gold to purple, from crimson to indigo. You watch shadows lengthen across your land, stretching over strips of barley, over cottages, over forest. For a moment, the whole valley glows as if gilded. This is the moment nobles live for, to stand above, to survey, to feel the land pulse with your authority. Every furrow ploughed below, every hut filled with smoke, every sheep grazing on hillsides, they are tied to you. Your title, your ring, your sword bind them. They labour, so your hall may feast, so your children may inherit, so your name may endure, power and burden both. Yet the beauty unsettles too, for you know how fragile it is. You remember sieges when fire licked these walls, when smoke darkened skies. You remember winters when famine hollowed bellies, when villagers buried more children than they christened. You remember plague whispering through huts, blackening skin, silencing laughter. To see the land now in golden peace is to know how quickly that peace can wither. As the sun lowers, peasants hurry. From fields they carry tools, hoes, sickles, rakes slung across shoulders weary with work. Their children scamper ahead. Barefoot, hair wild, fires are kindled in huts, shadows of women moving behind thin walls, stirring pots of thin stew, feeding babies with crusts dipped in broth. Their voices drift faintly upward, a lullaby of survival. In the castle, preparations for supper stir. Servants carry baskets of bread, pitchers of ale, trenchers stacked high. Dogs bark at scraps tossed too soon. The steward paces, tallying loaves, muttering of casks nearly empty. Musicians tune strings in corners, their notes faint and uneven. Soon the great hall will blaze with noise and colour, but here on the tower you hear only the quieter music of the land, wind, river, bells, and the beating of your own heart. You think of your ancestors. How many stood on this same height, watching this same sun slip down? Their names echo in charters and stories, yet most are forgotten, reduced to dust and bones beneath carved slabs in chapels. You think of your children, of councils yet to come, of bloodlines that will argue long after you are gone. Will they too climb this stair, stand where you stand, breathe this same view, or will strangers hold it, banners changed, your crest scraped from stone? The sunset sinks lower, the colours deepen, burning into crimson, then fading to bruised violet. The fields vanish into shadow, the cottages into dots of smoke, the river into a black thread. The sky opens wide, stars piercing through, cold and remote. Night claims what day gilded. Behind you, footsteps echo softly. A servant arrives, cloak pulled tight, bowing low. He murmurs that supper waits, that the fire burns bright, that the hall is ready. Perhaps your wife comes too, her hand resting lightly on your arm, her eyes lifted to the fading sky. You linger, holding on to the last light, because in this moment you feel the truth. All this is yours, yet none of it is you rule. You feast, you judge, you pray, but time rules all. The land endures. Names fade, towers crumble, forests regrow, villages shift. The sunset comes whether you are here or not. At last you breathe deep. Cold air fills your chest, smelling of smoke, soil, and the faint sweetness of hay. You let it out slowly, as though releasing the day itself. You place one last hand on the stone, rough and cold, scarred by centuries. Then you turn toward the stair, toward the noise and light below. The sun is gone. The land lies dark, but tomorrow it will rise again, gilding fields, huts, halls, and towers. It will shine on your heirs, or on strangers, or on no one at all. That is the rhythm, eternal and unbroken. You descend slowly, the castle embracing you once more. Behind you, the sky still glows faintly, the last ember of the day fading into night. Ahead of you waits warmth, supper, voices, but part of you remains on the tower, watching, holding the view that belongs to all, yet for one fleeting evening feels like yours alone. The castle fades. Its stones, so heavy, so cold, blur into shadow, the rush of voices, the bark of dogs, the creak of gates, all soften, until they are no more than distant murmurs. Even the wind atop the tower dies away, leaving only the stillness of night. You are no longer on the battlements, no longer beneath banners or beside fire. You are lying in your own bed, cloaked in quiet, wrapped in warmth. The burdens of land and lineage, of feasts and councils, of hunts and battles, slip from your shoulders as easily as a cloak falling to the floor. The world that weighed so heavily drifts behind you. The bell is silent. The fields are dark. The peasants sleep in their huts, the servants in their lofts, the lords in their chambers. The land itself breathes slowly, as though even the earth has grown weary and rests with you. You breathe with it. In, slow and steady, out, soft and long. Each breath loosens you further. Your hands unclench, your jaw softens, your body sinks deeper into the mattress beneath you. No stone presses cold, no draught slips through cracks, no fear stirs, only comfort remains. The imagery dissolves, candles gutter out, banners fade into mist, horses quiet, dogs curl, fires collapse into glowing embers. All is safe, all is still. You are here now and nowhere else, safe inside your blankets, safe inside your breath, safe inside the slow rhythm of sleep that gathers around you like a tide. The world of lords and ladies, of towers and tapestries, slips further away until only darkness remains. A gentle darkness, soft as wool, endless as night, welcoming as home. You are safe now. That world fades behind you. The sounds grow distant, the air grows quiet, and your body drifts slow into dreams. Sweet dreams,